Hello friends. Welcome to the Phoenix What If. How are you all? So in this video, we will see what if Ichigo fell in love with Ophis and became overpowered. But before we start, if you want more amazing stuff like this, then be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Also if possible share this vid. It has to be him. He's using his Zanpakuto's ability on that man. But how is it possible? That man, Yhwach, has ability to see every single possible future and change it to his whim. The Quincy Emperor called it Orame the how is, his Zanpakuto's ability works on Yhwach. What am I saying? It's him we're talking about. Knowing him, he's probably planned this since the very beginning. I saw the end of the portal and increased my pace before jumped out the portal. I saw Yhwach, ran through his right arm to that man chest while talking to him. He didn't seems to notice me jumped out from the portal he left open for me to enter, probably thanks to that man, Zanpakuto. It has been fun Ichigo. Your resistance was mildly amusing at best. Yhwach thought he was talking to me, proving that he has been fooled by that man, Zanpakuto. I'm still curious how he is able to pull that off. Now, the least I can do for you is to erase your existence along with Soul Society with you. As soon as Yhwach finished his rather annoying monologue, I saw that man raised his right arm, which also his remains arm, and hold Yhwach forearm in tight grip. I see. I felt the effect of his Zanpakuto disappeared, knowing that he had dispelled his illusions, allowing Yhwach realize that he had been fooled. So, you think you're gazing at Kurosaki Ichigo? That man, Sosuke Aizen, spoke in rather insolent tone. The smug on his face just added the effect. Fascinating. Now this is my chance. The fact Aizen purposely dispelled his illusions, meaning that he sent me a signal to attack Yhwach before he noticed my presence. I quickly shunpo'd behind the Quincy Emperor and ran my recently repaired Tensa Zangetsu through his chest. Yhwach seems quite shocked at seeing me landing a solid hit on him. With one mighty roar, I poured every single bit of my Reiatsu onto my blade before unleashed my signature attack. Getsuga Tenshou. I'm swinging my blade upward, releasing a highly devastating blue wave of Reiatsu that seemingly shook the entire Soul Society. I saw Yhwach turn around to face me before he fell on the ground as his body becomes a pool of black goo. I look at him for a few moments before I heard a series of footsteps from behind me. Passable enough. Aizen spoke to me as he approached me. I looked at him and noticed he had missing his left arm, but it seems didn't bother him at all. Which makes sense since he had survived his entire body vaporized into dust after I hit him with Mugetsu technique. Well done on responding as quickly as you did to my Kyoto Suigetsu. He complimented me. I don't know whether he's being honest or just being critical. That man is too unpredictable for me to read. So, I decided to humor him and play along by answering, still not letting my guard down. On my way here I got this strange familiar feeling. The same feeling when you had placed everyone under Kyoto Suigetsu's spell. I told him without batting my eyes of him. Indeed. He replied with his left eye narrowed at me. He knows I'm studying him. Without him knowing, I had already put Yhwach under my Kyoto Suigetsu back then during the first invasion on Seirei, when his Almighty's clairvoyant power wasn't active. I'd figure out it might be useful in long run. And while his power can change the future, he cannot change the past. I widened his eyes a little in realization. Aizen was right. Yhwach cannot change the past, he can only change the future. That's why Inoue was unable to fix my broken Bankai because Yhwach had already erased every single possible future where my Bankai didn't broken. As far as I know, once you got caught into Kyoto Suigetsu's illusion, you will be under its effect again, even when you're not witnessing the release for second time. The effect of Kyoto Suigetsu was still there even after hundreds of years. It also explains why Ginjo had brought Tsukushima along to Royal Palace to fix his Bankai. His Fullbring, the Book of the End, allows him to insert Tsukushima in the past of his victim. The victim can be anything, even it works on non-living object. By inserting himself into Tensa Zangetsu's past, Tsukushima basically creating an entirely new future where his Bankai wasn't broken, allowing Inoue to use her causality reversal power to restore Tensa Zangetsu. The final component was you who was unaffected to my Kyoto Suigetsu. That's right, he's probably has predicted me coming here and already activated Kyoto Suigetsu so I wouldn't be caught in the illusions.
Clever mother. Who would have thought that me, not showing you the release of Kyoto Suigetsu would have paid off like this? I just give him a look. Yeah, no shit. Not even Sosuke Aizen could have thought that. Sarcasm inserted.
Now with Yhwach dead, this man before me is now a threat to all existence. $10 say he wouldn't want to go back to Muken. Not that I can blame him, but still. Kurosaki Ichigo. Oh great, here we go again. The fact he referred me with my full name means he's preparing himself to unleash his self-proclaimed godly monologue.
That was, when suddenly, the pool of black goo erupted and engulfed Aizen completely.
I noticed he is saying something but I could hear it at all.
Aizen. I, on pure instinct, called out his name before I see eyes everywhere beneath my feet. I widened my eyes in disbelief at what just happened.
Yhwach, the progenitor of Quincy, is still alive. Impossible.
I refuse to believe. How can he still alive after getting struck by my full-powered Getsuga Tenshou at point-blank range?
Not to mention my last Getsuga was completely different from the usual Getsuga I fired. It was infused with Tensa Zangetsu's special ability. It's not the speed, but an ability that should have killed Yhwach for good. And yet, he's still alive and kicking. Kyoto Suigetsu's effect appears to have ended. A voice spoke from the puddle of black goo that began rising slowly. And I know whose voice is that. Pride, or did it just reach its limit?
Zangetsu. How can he still alive after taking a direct blow from that Getsuga? Our Bankai, special ability, should have killed him once for all. I asked my Zanpakuto, who is also my hollow, mentally, so Yhwach or Aizen, if he's still alive, wouldn't hurt our conversation.
I'm not entirely sure, King. But it's possible that before you unleashed that Getsuga, the mustache bastard had seen every single possibility, which probably there isn't even a single possible future where he didn't die. So, before you fired that Getsuga, he rewrites the future so he would survive from your Getsuga. That's kind of complicated, but I can understand what Zangetsu implying. And if what Zangetsu said is true, then killing Yhwach with his power still activated would be nigh impossible. We need to find a way to shut down Oromate before delivering a fatal blow to him.
Say Ichigo. My train of thought were interrupted when the bastard called me. I saw the black goo began to form into Yhwach again. Did you really think something at that caliber would be enough to kill me? I gritted my teeth in anger at the taunt. The bastard still has some energy left to mock me after I just basically killed him.
My power is the power to alter the future itself. I heard he bragged his power again as he began to grow bigger.
That would be a troublesome, but I'm confused why I feel like I'm missing something.
I can even rewrite the futures, in which I have died. That's it, I had enough.
I charged at him at the speed that made even the like of Yoruichi looks like a slug in comparison and prepared my Tensa Zangetsu again. Useless. The bastard used some sort of powerful telekinesis power to knock away my blade from my hands. I saw Tensa Zangetsu sank into the ground and turned around to grab my blade. That, before the black shadowy thing engulfed my blade, preventing me from reaching him. Yes, I refer my blade as him. The shadow suddenly reached for me and tried to engulf me the way it's engulfed Aizen. It's hurt like bitch. I cried out in agony as I struggled breaking free from the shadow. That's until I heard Yhwach yelling while expanding his shadowy thing throughout the entire Soul Society. This is the end. The human world, Soul Society and Hueco Mundo. All three realities, before my power, will lose their forms and merged into one.
Shit, I panicked when I hear his declaration. He's starting to merge all those universes into one. The image of Karen and Yuzu, as well as my friend in the school dying, flashed through my mind. I paled at the image.
I won't let it happen. With no little effort, I barely able to pierce my right hand into the shadow that swallowed my Tensa Zangetsu and grabbed the hilt before slashed the shadow.
I brought my Bankai back and poured the remainder of my Reiatsu. Getsuga Tenshou. I shot another Getsuga at him. This one is much weaker than the previous one though, and somehow hit him square in the chest. It's doing little damage, but it's enough to break his concentration when the shadows that binds me, as well as the ones that engulfed the entire Soul Society, to disappear. I take my chance as I shunpo ed right above him with Tensa Zangetsu raised over my head.
I saw him widened his eyes for a second before it went back to normal. He raised his left arm up with his blood vessels were glowing in blue.
I instantly recognized this. Blood Vene, a Quincy defense technique, allowing its user to block any physical attack by pouring their reishi through their blood vessels. Last time, cutting through that defense technique wasn't an easy task. There is no reason to believe that it would be a piece of cake this time.
So I did the thing that old man Zangetsu taught me after I gaining my true Zanpakuto. I absorbed reishi around myself and let it flow through my blood vessels in both of my hands, which are now glowing in red.
This is blood aritery, a technique that grants its user inhuman attack power.
I slashed down my Tensa Zangetsu and Yhwach's SSSS.
AAAAARRRRGGHHH. And effortlessly sliced off his left arm. Bloods are spurting from his severed arm, but I didn't stop there. This time I aims for his head, but this bastard uses his shadow to grab onto my leg and through me slammed the ground. Hard. I grunt in pain while trying to get back to my feet. I use Tensa Zangetsu as the support and dizzily stand back to my feet again. I saw Yhwach gripped his severed arm while staring at it for a while before he widened his eyes in pure shock. It can't be, 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 he roared in pure rage before glared at me.
What have you done, Kurosaki Ichigo? Why can't I regenerate my left arm?
Oh well, he's finally snapped. If not because of the dire situation, I would have laughing my ass off right now. You cannot heal it because your left arm have been destroyed in every plane of existences. I answered calmly, but not forgetting to put a smug on my face.
It's payback times, bitch. You're not the only one who has a rather cheating power.
Every plane of existences. What nonsense are you talking about? It's official, he has lost his mind. Perhaps this will be easier than I thought. Gotta press the right button now.
What? Aren't you already foreseeing my Bankai ability back in Royal Palace to the point it's necessary to break my blade before I can use him? He's only staring at me with a dumb look on his face, and his ridiculous mustache didn't help it either.
I decided to humor him and pointed my blade at him. Tensa Zangetsu's ability. Any damage Tensa Zangetsu deals to the world cannot be reversed. It's basically negate any form of regeneration and even immortality. Even right now, if you're trying to, for an instance, send you consciousness to your alternate self, your left arm won't return, without my permission. I reveal my ability to him and enjoyed his god-smacked face.
Bullshit. If it's true, then how can I recover from your Getsuga back then? I raised an eyebrow at that. For someone who claimed he can see every possible futures, he's really an idiot.
It's because you had rewrite your own death before I deal the fatal blow to you. Your power allows you to change the event that's going to happen, but it can't change the event that's already happened.
I saw him widen his eyes in realization before he began laughing like a madman.
What am I talking about? He is a madman. Bwahahahaha. Interesting, Ichigo. Your Bankai ability is truly fearsome, as expected from war potential like you. He then stared at me and held his right arm in front of him. So that's why, I'm gonna break your Bankai again, and this time, for good. I just stood the as I guess he's trying to use G or maid on me again.
But this time, I have nothing to worry about. What? Chance? That is what I was thinking when Yhwach was shocked, yet again when his trump card didn't work on me this time. I charged at him again and slashed my Tensa Zangetsu across his chest, earning a roar of agony from him. He retreaded back while shooting large stream of shadows at me. How? Why I can't break your Bankai? What kind of absurd ability your blade possess this time?
I chase after him and slash the shadows that come in my way, not that the shadows can hurt me now, but because they will slow me down in chasing him. You're gravely mistaken if you think my Bankai's ability is all about offensive only. I keep chasing after him while slashed through the shadows that in my way. In fact, the true terror of Tensa Zangetsu's ability manifests itself in his defense capability. If an ability was used against me once, it will not work against me a second time, as the ability itself is now broken. I can clearly see his tough guy attitude began to crumble. No, he mumbled that barely audible even for those with sharp ears. No, 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 no.
He's keep rambling on, but I don't care. This is a chance for me to defeat him once for all.
I won't accept this. I won't accept this humiliation.
The bastard snapped out even more as he shoot out that shadowy thing of his recklessly. I easily slashed each of every one of them that come after me. But something is not right, and apparently, Yhwach seems noticed it as well.
A crack, a very huge crack appears on the sky above us. It looks like a shattered mirror, similar to that technique Ulquiorra used to travel between dimensions. The crack soon collapsed, revealing a huge hole above the sky.
I can clearly see endless darkness inside the huge hole. I, for the lack of better words, freaked out when the hole began to suck everything on Seirei. According to common sense, a hole that sucked everything into an unknown endless darkness is not a good thing.
Ichigo, this is bad. Yhwach's second attempt of merging all three realities has disrupted the balance between dimensions. You have to get out of here. I hear old man Zangetsu spoke to me mentally. I agree with him, but something just caught my attention.
That bastard, the bastard who started all this mess, is struggling not to get sucked into the wormhole. And suddenly, an idea just popped out in my mind.
Please tell me you're not going to do what I think you would do. Zangetsu seems to be able to read my mind.
Makes sense though, since we're technically one being. There is no other way. Even though he can't use his power on me anymore, he still can use his power to himself. As long as it's still active, he will keep rewrite his own death every time I kill him.
I then flew at Yhwach again, who seemingly isn't paying attention to me. I coated my blade in pure blue Reiatsu with the intent to knock him towards the wormhole. However, the bastard suddenly appeared right in front of me and caught me by my wrists. Even though I cannot use my power on you anymore, that doesn't mean I can't defend myself. I can see all possible future, remember. I tried to break free, but it's only made the situation worse. Shadows, a lot of them, are slowly crawling around my body. Our bodies are now floating towards the wormhole when it sucks us. I can see what you're planning, Ichigo, throwing me to the endless void since you can't permanently kill me. Pretty clever. For a high school kid standard. The bastard laughed as if he had gone crazy. That was when a blade pierced through him from behind, stopping his annoying laughter. He, and surprisingly I too, wide-eyed when we found out whose blade is that. Since when did you think you're free from my Kyoto Suigetsu? Aizen, he's still alive. But how? Then I suddenly remembered the moment he got devoured by Yhwach's shadows. Aizen was releasing his Zanpakuto back then, and thus putting Yhwach and myself under its illusion. So he wanted us thinking that he's dead back then. Hado number 99, Goryuden Metsu. Shit. An absurdly titanic amount of energy ruptures a large area around us, causing the ground to rise up in pillars, before rising into the air to form an enormous dragon above Aizen. I sensed the output Reiatsu of that attack had released. Had been that Kyoto demon art spell fired in human world, Asia would have been annihilated several times over. And what frightened me even more, that Aizen was casting it casually without using incantation, not to mention most of his power was sealed. Even while being imprisoned in Muken, that bastard still has a way to get even stronger than the last time I fought him. Call me crazy, but I think a full-powered version of that spell could have annihilated the entire world not just once. The spell had sent me even closer to the wormhole. Unfortunately for Yhwach, he was blasted away directly to the wormhole's mouth. Curse you, Sosuke Aizen. Yhwach yelled out in pure rage as he was sucked into the endless void of darkness, while I struggled not to get sucked into the wormhole. However, I noticed something off. The wormhole seems to get smaller by the time Yhwach was sucked into it. That's a good sign, but it seems that I talks too soon, as the wormhole is getting stronger than before. Aizen looked at me and smiled insolently. Thanks for helping me get rid of him, Kurosaki Ichigo. You have my eternal gratitude, he said to me while standing firmly on the ground. I closed my eyes in resignation. For a second time in a day. It's over, I have lost again. But this time, Aizen is the winner. Do not give up, son of mine. I widened my eyes when I hear a really familiar voice from below. I saw him. I saw my dad, Kurosaki Izshin, appeared behind Aizen with his Zanpakuto, Engetsu, raised above his head. Getsuga Tenshou. With a mighty roar, my dad slashed down his sword and thus released a highly destructive whiz of blue Reiatsu on Aizen. The Getsuga was so powerful that it had split the already ruined Seraiti into two.
Clouds of dust were blocking my vision. I cannot see neither my dad nor Aizen anywhere. That Getsuga was indeed a powerful one, but it's Sosuke Aizen we're talking about.
As I predicted, as soon as the dust cleared, it revealed Aizen caught my dad's sword, God that sounds awkward, while tanking the point-blank Getsuga without a scratch.
But I saw my father grinned as he gestured his left arm up in familiar fashion, causing Aizen to flinch a little. With a simple F of finger, my dad, surprisingly, sent Aizen flying towards the wormhole which sucked the madman before he could even utter one word.
As soon as Aizen vanished, I thought all this mess is finally over. But I was proven wrong when the wormhole, while getting smaller, is also getting stronger to the point the area outside of Seraiti started to get affected. The suddenly increased of pressure caused me lost my balance and almost get sucked into the wormhole if not because a blue glowed chains made of Raryoku wrapped around my left wrist. Hang on, son, I saw my father tried his best to pull me down. But his attempt is futile when he was the one who get pulled up instead. Ichigo, the hole is getting stronger and will eventually pull up everything in Soul Society into it and turning this dimension into nothingness. You have to shut it off. Old man Zangetsu spoke to me. Shutting off that wormhole, it's easier said than be done. The only way I could think of is one of us has to willingly throw our life away and let that wormhole suck us into nothingness. I can see the gravity of our current situation. One of us have to make a hard decision or we both die.
I have done my best to train you and protect you, Ichigo. If this is your decision, then I will respect it. I heard old man Zangetsu spoke. I'm with the old man here. Zangetsu joined in too. Although there is so much things I'd like to teach you, but as your powers, we will always stand by your side until the end.
Same here. I was quite touched by their words. Those two were always with me since the day I was born, and they willingly to stand by my side even in this hopeless situation. How I was lucky having them as my part of myself. Thanks guys. I smile as I felt alone tears running down my face before wiped it away. I then hardened my resolve and looked at my father, my crazy bipolar father who had constantly attacked me in the morning, still keep trying to save me from my inevitable demise.
Mom, if you can hear me, I'm glad that you married this man. Childish antic aside, he's the best father a son could have ever asked.
Dad, I called out for my dad as loud as I can since it, quite noisy here. Fortunately, he seems to hear me and looked up. I'm staring at him in the eyes, taking a very deep breath before break the news to him. You'd better take care of Yuzu and Karen. If something bad happens to them, I swear I'll find a way to kick your ass 6 ways to Sunday. I was expecting him snapped out and tried to convince me to rethink my decision. But my dad just gave me a sad but an understanding expression. Don't worry my son, nothing bad is going to happen to them. They will just, gonna mad at you at your sudden departure. I heard his answer and I can tell he's fighting his own tears. I saw my father almost slipped himself, indication that I have to go now. I brought up Tensa Zangetsu before raised him over my head and looked at him one more time with a determined looks on my face. Goodbye dad, I love you. I brought down my blade and slashed the chains. It snapped within the contact and thus allowing me to get sucked into the wormhole. As soon as I entered the wormhole, my vision began to blur with memories of my life, playing through my mind at incredible speed until darkness claims me.
Scene change. Third person's POV, Kurosaki Isshin couldn't fight back his tears as he watched his son disappeared into the wormhole, which had been closed completely thanks to his son's sacrifice.
But Isshin wasn't the only one who cried over the death of a brave hero that is Kurosaki Ichigo. The sky above Seraiti is getting darkened, the cloud gathered together above the battlefield, thunders were begin roaring in anguish, and it completed with the heavily poured rains. It seems as if the heaven itself was also crying over the father's lose. Unknown time, unknown place Ichigo's POV. Am I dead? That's the only thing I could think of as I could see nothing but endless darkness beyond horizon. My body felt heavy that I cannot even lift a finger at all. My body also felt cold, it's really cold but one thing I was so sure.
I didn't feel dead. Suddenly, my body began to warm. It's warm, surprisingly warm and soothing. It's calmed my mind to a little bit. My body felt lighter and I can move my finger now. With no little effort, I opened my eyes to see the source of this comforting feeling. A pair of gray eyes, staring down at me almost emotionlessly. I'd say almost because I could detect a hint of interest in her eyes.
The owner is a pale-skinned prepubescent girl around 12 years old with long black hair reached her back. My head was resting on her lap as he stroked my hair gently. I could tell this girl wasn't human since her pointed ears is a dead giveaway. She was also wearing rather unique and indecent set of clothes. She dressed in a black gothic Lolita uniform which didn't even cover her front. Heck, the only thing that covered her front was two black X, which barely even hid her S from the world.
The girl tilted her head when she noticed me staring at her. Not in the way you're thinking. What a peculiar creature you are. You looks like a human, but there is something else that even I have no idea what it is. Not to mention, no human could survive within dimension gap and possesses powers comparable to that dragon. She's talking in rather small voice that barely audible to me.
I raised an eyebrow a little when the girl mentioned this dimension gap. My eyes scanned the area and found out I'm in a space filled with multiple colors that seemingly blend in together perfectly. I looked back to the girl who keeps staring at me with those eyes of hers which freaked the hell of me. Tell me, young one, what manner of creature are you? The girl asked with blank tone that barely contains any emotion at all.
I stared at her for a moment while thinking whether I should answer her or not. Despite her harmless appearance, I know she is anything but harmless. And the fact she called me young one indicating that she's older than she looks. I can go a limb and say I'm not in my world anymore. I don't know if I can ever getting back to my home. Perhaps this girl could be my tour guide while I'm in this world. I can't just wander aimlessly, who knows what I might find here. But I also could trust her with some classified information. Perhaps I could mix the truths with lies.
It's not, young one, it's Kurosaki Ichigo, miss.
Ophis. She answered with barely no emotion at all.
I raised an eyebrow at the name. I swear I heard that name somewhere, I just couldn't put a finger on it. Still gotta find the fitting description for myself. I think I got one, and it's involving of my unique heritages and the fact I'm a magnet for troubles. The last one irked me to no end. Miss Ophis, and for your question earlier. You could say I'm a freak of nature itself and also God's personal chew toys. That's probably the only word could be described to a place such as the dimension gap. The endless multicolored space that connected to every other realms in existence. The sole reason of this silence is because no one could maintain their existence while being fully exposed to the gargantuan pressure of nothingness within the dimension gap.
No one except two known ultimate beings. Great Red, the Apocalypse Dragon, the true Red Dragon God Emperor, True Dragon, and the Dragon of Dragons. No one knows where it came from, but it currently held the title as the strongest being in existence.
Ophis, the Ouroboros dragon, the Infinity Dragon God. Born from nothingness, Ophis had been resided in the dimension gap since the day she was born.
And now, the dimension gap has a newcomer from another world.
Kurosaki Ichigo, a human Shinigami Hollow Quincy hybrid. In short, he is a freak of nature, just like what he said to Ophis. He arrived here after his supposed death back from his home world.
Now we could find our favorite hybrid was sitting in meditative pose with both his Zanpakuto, which had been reverted to their Shikai state, placed on his lap. Jinzen. The only method for a Shinigami to have a proper conversation with their Zanpakuto by forcing their mind to become one with the Zanpakuto. In this form, one can call out the true form of the powers of their Zanpakuto. It has been refined over thousands of years, since the beginning of Soul Society, to allow one to commune with their Zanpakuto.
This advanced form of training was far different from attaining abilities by force. In this form, one entered a state of calm to enter the inner world of the Zanpakuto and engage them there. In this state, a wielder will have to fight their Zanpakuto spirit in order to attain access to new abilities. Unwilling to teach its owner these abilities, the Zanpakuto spirit engaged its wielder in a battle, the likes of which has never taken place before. Also in this meditative state, one is so deeply entranced, even sustained wounds were ignored. Any form of injury sustained in the inner world while in this meditative state was reflected in the real world. Ichigo for the last, I don't know, perhaps 2 or 3 hours, time is irrelevant in the dimension gap, were trying to enter his inner world. Not much a success. He twitched his eyebrow in annoyance, scowl appeared on his face, His right eye opened in irritation while staring at a certain raven-haired girl that had been staring at him with a blank look on her face.
Which freaked even his hollow, Shinigami spirit inside of him. For the love of Kingy, get rid of the brat will ya? She creeped the hell out of me. Ichigo couldn't really blame him for that. Ophis's blank stare was even scarier than Ulquiorra's, and that's saying something.
Don't you have anyone else to annoy too? Ichigo asked the girl in front of him.
No, Ophis replied. That was a lie, there's Great Red, but he probably will retaliate with lethal force. Ichigo sighed and decided to give up, knowing that it's not going to work with Ophis keep staring at him. Made a mental note to find an isolated place where he can be alone enough to enter his inner world.
For the next 20 minutes, Ichigo and Ophis were having staring contest. Neither of them talks nor even blinks for that matter, while Ichigo seems to focus his attention to the girl before him. His mind was going elsewhere. Oi old man, don't you think Yhwach or Aizen, or maybe both had arrived here first? Ichigo asked to the wise spirit inside of his soul.
It's possible, Ichigo. It's also possible that both of them are here for years. Tensa Zangetsu answered, which made Ichigo shifted his expression a little bit, causing Ophis tilted her head slightly.
Years? How is that possible? I followed them into that damn portal only few minutes after those two entered it. Sorry King, but what the old man said is true. Times in here are flowing in similar fashion to the one in Dongai. As the gap between realms, this place has so many streams of times with each of them are different from another. Let's just say it's morning in one place and night in another. The only different this place compared to Dongai is because times in here can go forwards and backwards at the same time. Which mean both of those could be in either past or future. Time is irrelevant in here, Ichigo deduced while he was deep in thought. If both Yhwach and Aizen were in the future while he was in the past, then he can prepare himself for their arrival. But even so, he still had no idea when they're going to show up their ugly faces in this universe. It could be a year, 10 years, 100 years or even 1,000 years later.
But if it's the opposite, then he's at massive disadvantage. They could have known this universe better than he do and prepared themselves for his arrival. Or they could have possibly had conquered this universe already by the time he arrived in here. Either way, this doesn't bode well for him. LP me?
Ichigo was snapped out from his thought as he swore he heard Ophis said something. I'm sorry, what did you just say? Ichigo politely asked.
Help me. Ophis repeated with empty tone, which was hard to distinguish for Ichigo whether or not that's a demand or a request. Help you in what? Exactly? Ichigo just raised an eyebrow at her. Kill Great Red. Ichigo blinked once, then blinked again, and again before he tilted his head.
Huh, did I hear that right? Ophis nodded her head innocently, which, if Ichigo could say it out loud, made her look so adorable.
Great Red just appeared out of nowhere and took my home from me. As long as he's here, I will never obtain complete silence anymore. Ophis's voice, normally dull and monotone, was now filled with resentment and anticipation.
Ichigo just stared at her change of mood. Whoever this Great Red is, he must have done something that pisses her off. Although he wasn't sure why, he thought Ophis didn't truly hate this Great Red person. Ophis was like an open book to him. He could tell that this girl was all alone in her entire life. While she seemingly content with the constant silence she got every day, he knew she had dreamed a company who was able to maintain their existence in this deadly place. But then she didn't know what to do when she got what she dreamed of. She has always get used to the silence, so she mistook the companion she had always dreamed of as an intruder who want to take away her home. Sorry, but I cannot help you with your goal, Ichigo replied after a few minutes as he stood back to his feet.
Why? He wasn't sure why, but he swore he detected a hint of sadness in her tone.
Because I have no reason to. I just arrived in this world and the last I want is making as much as enemy as I can. Two are enough, thank you very much, Ichigo voiced, adding the hint of sarcasm on the last part as he began to walk away. Ichigo then stopped before tapped the non-existent air within the dimension gap, opening a mouth-like portal in this endless multicolored space. But I think I know what your problem is. If you're interested, go find me, and I'll help you. And with that, Ichigo stepped into the portal before the said portal closed itself, leaving Ophis in deep thought, thinking what that peculiar creature that is Kurosaki Ichigo said to her. Unknown time, inside of Garganta. During his travel through the Garganta, Ichigo was having conversation with both of his powers.
Was that really necessary, Ichigo? Quincy Zangetsu said out of blue. Yeah, King. I mean, she's definitely gonna stalking us for sure thanks to you. And I don't think I can last even a minute with creepy blank face of her staring at me.
Ichigo just snickered at Zangetsu's comment. Ichigo actually kind of scared at how emotionless Ophis could be. Not even Ulquiorra could give him such feeling by merely staring at him. Well, at least she's capable of expressing emotions. Ichigo responded, and he could tell Zangetsu just rolled his eyes at him from his inner world.
Emotion my ass. The only time she'd ever shifted her face slightly when she was staring down at you. And that's because out of curiosity rather than emotion.
Ichigo just sighed tiredly, not wanting to argue with Zangetsu anymore since it will only waste both times and energies. Whatever. Can you teach me how to create a Garganta so I can travel much easier this time around? Ichigo asked to the manifestation of his Shinigami hollow power. Creating a Garganta is like a walk in the park. All you have to do is to rip the fabric of space itself and stabilize each tear with Raryoku diffused dark matter. It's a piece of cake actually.
Piece of cake? That sounds more complicated than Inoue's cooking recipe. And that's saying something.
Opening the portal was the easy part, Ichigo, but setting the desired destination is the hardest part of traveling through an interdimensional tear. The portal you created could have led to wrong destination, and even if you had already set the right coordinates, disruption from foreign energy could collapse the portal itself. Quincy Zangetsu explained at the dangerous of using Garganta from traveling. Ichigo nodded in understanding before he looked ahead and saw the end of the portal. But before he could step out from it.
Wait, Ichigo. The orange-haired hybrid groaned. What now, old man? He asked in annoyance, wanting to find something to eat since his stomach began to rumble. We need to tone down your Ryotsu first before allowing you enter the human world. The Kisei manifestation explained while Ichigo just raised an eyebrow at that. You might not feel it, but since you have regained your true powers, your Ryotsu level has been transcendent into whole new level.
Now Ichigo was shocked at that. Seriously, he asked again.
Keha. You really had no idea how powerful you have become. Gosh, you're really pathetic, Kingy. Your Ryotsu had made Yamamoto's looks pale in comparison, although it's still below Aizen. God, that guy Ryotsu is off the charts. And it still keep on rising as we speak. And I thought you're a freak. Ignoring the last remark, Ichigo continued on. Why'd I need to tone down my Ryotsu anyway? He inquired, still not seeing the point.
Ichigo, ever since you'd attained your true power, your Ryotsu has become so dense to the point you can vaporize any living being by simply existing near them. It's similar to Aizen, unless he has far more control with his Ryotsu. Now that was a huge shock to him. He knew he has gotten stronger than the time when he trained in Dongai, but to be able to harm living being by simply within their reach. That's neither what he expected nor he wanted to. Then what should I do to seal, apparently, this too much power of mine? Ichigo desperately asked.
Normally, being able to seal your Shikai is enough. Quincy Zangetsu began. Normally, the orange-haired hybrid raised an eyebrow at the word.
Yeah, as zero-talented as you are in terms of Ryotsu control, which was needed to seal up a Shinigami's Shikai, we decided to devise temporary 5-layered of seals for you. With this, you can interact with even ordinary human without killing them.
Now Ichigo was interested. This seals would prove themselves useful until he has fully control over his Ryotsu, but he's still worried about one thing.
Will I be able to release the seal on my own? As much as I don't want to harm other with my Ryotsu, there is nothing I hate more than to be powerless in dire situation. Ichigo spoke again, still unsure about it.
Of course you can, you dumbass. Do you really think we hadn't even thought for that possibility? I can't believe it, I had to share an appearance with this dork. Okay, that's the final straw. Don't make me go in there and kick your albino ass. Again. Ichigo threatened his Shinigami, hollow spirit, who was merely yawning at the threat. Yeah. Like that would ever happen. Zangetsu waved off the threat, which irked the hell out of Ichigo even more.
Why yo, that's enough. Quincy Zangetsu, who apparently the wisest of the three, interjected before it getting out of hands. He started it. He started it. The two looks alike childishly accused while pointing at each other, though that's physically impossible. If Zangetsu was in good mood for joke, which was very rare, he would have chuckled at the sight of him, even for a little bit. Ichigo, leave your Reiatsu problem to us. Just make sure to stay out of trouble, okay? Quincy Zangetsu suggested, earning a snicker from Zangetsu, who shut his mouth instantly when the old-looking spirit glared at him within Ichigo's inner world. Can't promise, old man. Ichigo mumbled to himself, probably lamenting at the fact trouble seems always able to find him, before stepped into the portal himself. Saturday, December 3, 1996, 11:45 p.m., DXD Universe, Earth, Asia, Japan, Tokyo. Kurosaki Ichigo blinked as he scanned his surrounding. Fortunately, the Garganta had set the right destination by sending him to Earth. But unfortunately, he had no idea where he was now. All he could tell was he's currently in a big and crowded city. He was also on the top of skyscraper. He had a guess where he was right now, but he wasn't very sure about it. Oi Zangetsu, where the hell did you send me now? Ichigo both asked and demanded. The thought of getting lost again was really pissed his off. How should I know? You didn't specifically said the location you want to go. All you said was takes you to Earth and nothing more. Zangetsu raised his hand in defense. Ichigo gritted his teeth in irritation before he calmed himself down and took a deep breath. Well, better start looking around, I guess. He then walked to the edge of the building. The orange-haired hybrid looked down at the street, which was really busy even during night time. That itself was a hint of where he was, but still not enough for him to deduce an answer. He then proceeded looking around the city, which was filled with tall skyscraper, until one certain building had caught his attention.
Well, I guess we're in Tokyo. That's a good thing. He mumbled before he floated down into a dark alley.
Ichigo, we've done putting the seals on you. How does it feel? Quincy Zangetsu asked.
Ichigo then stared at his arm while trying to gauge to his Reiatsu. It feels weird, I guess, but I think I can get used to it, he responded as he landed on the alley.
But as soon as he reached the ground, Ichigo then heard, even in this crowded city, someone screaming for help. He also could felt the sudden burst of Raryoku before on instinct went to the source, which happened to be an abandoned construction site. Upon arriving at the source, the orange-haired hybrid found a scene of an elder couple, were back to the corner, frightened while facing a huge creature. The said creature has the body of twisted-looking woman, but the legs of spider. It stood over 7 meters tall, and it has a pair of scythe-like hand that was ready to dice the elder couple into pieces. Seeing their incoming doom, the couple closed their eyes, seemingly accepting their fates. The husband did a heroic, but sadly pointless act by shielding his wife with his body.
Just when the creature was about to end their life, "Hey, why don't you pick up someone your own size?" Ichigo yelled at the creature, causing it to stop in the mid-swing before turning its attention toward the orange-haired hybrid.
Ah, another human, and with quite potent powers too. The creature ate its lips in delight. You would become my most delicious treat ever once I kill you. The creature then raised its scythe-like arms and bring them down towards Ichigo, who had a rather bored look. The hybrid watched as the hand weapons came down at him in slow motion. He then sighed tiredly, activated blood venet on both his forearms and raised it above his head. Ichigo didn't even need Zangetsu to deal with this creature.
As soon as the scythe hands connected to Ichigo forearms, it got disintegrated upon contact with Ichigo's skins. Which shocked, not only the creature and the elder couple, but Ichigo himself too.
Ah, the creature screamed in agony after watching its hands being disintegrated by this human. How humiliating. Okay, what the hell? I thought you guys had sealed up most of my Reiatsu. Ichigo yelled toward the spirits within his body while the elder couple could only stare at him in shock and awe.
I'm sorry, Ichigo, but it seems we have miscalculated the amount of Reiatsu you possess. It's greater than we predicted, Quincy Zangetsu replied.
Can't you just add another seal on me? Ichigo asked again. Yes, we could, but the seal would be too unstable to maintain and it could break the other seals on you at any time, releasing full force of your deadly Reiatsu and wiping all souls on the planet. This time, Zangetsu was the one who answered. The answer, though, greatly shocked Ichigo to his core. We suggest you to learn how to seal off your shikai as soon as possible since we're not Urahara Kazuki who can devise an advanced seal in the matter of minute. But for the time being, do not touch any ordinary human, or any supernatural creature at this level if you don't want to kill them. Tensa Zangetsu advised to Ichigo, who silently nodded. What are you? No human is able to do that. Are you an exorcist that heaven sent to kill me? The creature rambled, frightened as it backed away from Ichigo, which was both a wise and futile move for its part. Ichigo just raised an eyebrow when he heard the words, exorcist, and heaven, in the same sentence, but decided to seek about it later. Well, I'm neither human nor this exorcist you're talking about. Ichigo walked towards the creature, which seems to be paralyzed by Ichigo still, too much Reiatsu. I'm just a freak who got lost. Ichigo then tapped his finger on the creature's leg, instantly obliterated its soul from existence. Ichigo just sighed again as he scratched the back of his head. Well, that was anticlimax. Better find a spot to sleep, this place looks nice. With that, Ichigo was about to find a comfortable place around the abandoned site. Wait, Ichigo just froze on his track when somebody called him. He slowly turned around and saw the elder couple that get attacked from before and bowed to him. Thank you for saving us. Ichigo just blinked at this. He looks around left and right, back and front just to make sure that they're talking to him. Ichigo found no one else but him, but he still wasn't so sure.
You're welcome. But how can you see me? Ichigo asked while pointing at himself.
The couple just looked up at him and gave him a strange look. No offense, young man, but with that hair of that color, and that big sword on your back, I'm sure you will be easy to spot. The husband answered, choosing his words carefully. Ichigo stared at them for a moment. I cannot sense any single trace of Raryoku on them. That's mean even an ordinary human can see me in this universe. Need to be more careful. Ichigo thought before nodded his head. Can you two walk home on your own? Ichigo inquired, offering himself to be an escort for the two.
Yes, our home is about 2 blocks from here. Thanks again, UMG man. The wife answered, earning a nod of understanding from the hybrid.
Well then, if you say so, I guess I'll take my leave now. Ichigo turned around as he walked again.
Wait, young man. Ichigo stopped again and looked over his shoulder to see the husband approached him. I heard you're looking for a place to sleep. Perhaps you can stay in our house for a night. The older man offered Ichigo. Ichigo just startled at the offer. You look like you don't have any money to afford a room. How could we let someone who saved our life sleep in this place? This time, the wife offered him. Are you sure you wouldn't mind? Ichigo asked again.
Not at all, young man, it's the least we can do to return the favor. The husband replied. Ichigo just stared at them again before sighed in defeat. All right, one night might not hurt, Ichigo said in acceptance, causing the couple smiled at him. But then his eyes turned into a serious one. Though I should warn you, no matter what, don't touch me while I'm sleeping if you don't want to end up like that creature from earlier. He warned the couple, who gulped and nodded.
As they walked off the construction site, the wife spoke again to break the silence. Excuse me, may I know the name of the man who saved us tonight? She asked the orange-haired hybrid. Ichigo looked at the old woman and answered, it's Kurosaki Ichigo.
One who protect, huh? That's really fitting name for you, young man. The husband pointed out, causing Ichigo to smile.
Thanks, you're probably the only one who ever can tell the true meaning of my name, mister. The two gasped at this. Oh right, we haven't tells you our names. The husband scratched back of his head sheepishly. My name is Masakazu Morita, and this is my wife Masakazu Fumika.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Morita-san, Fumika-san. Ichigo gave a rare smile to the elder couple.
The pleasure is ours, Ichigo-kun. Tuesday, March 3, 1997, 9:54 p.m. DXD Universe, Earth, Antarctica, 3 months later. Why is it so damn hard? It isn't working, this shit is so useless.
Hey, don't blame the method of training king, you're just suck at Reiatsu control.
It's not my fault I'm having too much Reiatsu, remember? Aizen has an even bigger amount of Reiatsu than yours, and he still can controls them no problem.
It's Sosuke mothering Aizen we're talking about. He can just take logic and with them. Hell, He's even got stronger while sitting in Mukan while wearing his gimp suit. Is that even possible?
Both of you, shut up. Quincy Zangetsu finally lost the remains of his patient and broke the pointless argument. Two shut their mouth immediately since the Yhwach looks alike never seemed to raise his voice like that. Arguing this will getting us nowhere. Now Ichigo, please try again before we call it for a day. Quincy Zangetsu spoke to the hybrid.
I already did what the had said. Hey, try to imagine my Reiatsu as water that filled an aquarium and stopped filling it when it's already full, but it still isn't working. Ichigo explained to his Quincy power manifestation.
Try again, Ichigo. This time, it was an order, not a request.
Ichigo sighed again and sat on meditative pose with both Zangetsu on his lap. He closed his eyes, imagined his Reiatsu was flowing like water and imagined a small aquarium and began to fill it. However, despite his best effort to slowly fill the imaginary aquarium with imaginary water, he instead literally dropped an entire ocean onto the poor small aquarium, shattering it in an instant. Ichigo was brought back to reality, only to see the area within radius 20 miles had been devastated as if a meteor had been dropped onto here.
Luckily for him, he had made the right decision by training in the middle of Antarctica.
Ichigo looked at the Yhwach looks alike. See, I told you so. Ichigo pointed out, causing the Quincy Zangetsu sighed again. That's enough for today. Was that all he said before he vanished into Ichigo's inner world? Ichigo then sighed before looked at Zangetsu who had seemingly been forgotten by him. What are you doing here? Get back to my head, you idiot. Ichigo ordered, and before the white copy of himself could retort, he also vanished into Ichigo's inner world. Single quote exclamation mark single quote. But not before saying that. Ichigo then his stomach grumbled a little, literally demanded at him for food. He shrugged before stand to his feet and tapping the air, opening a garganta, and stepped into the portal before it closed itself.
Tuesday, March 3, 1997, 9:59 p.m. DXD Universe, Earth, Asia, Japan, Tokyo, Shibuya District.
A portal suddenly appeared behind a very modest building in the corner of Shibuya District. Kurosaki Ichigo stepped out from the portal before he silently closing them. He stretched his body for a little bit before he entered the building through the back door. Ichigo soon entered a large kitchen area where everything seems to be a mess as if a horde of hollow had attacked this place. The tea plates, forks, spoons, and many kitchen tools were in shambles. He heard someone humming a song with a sound of water flowing down from the sink. Standing before the sink was Masakazu Fumika. She had gray hair that's indicating her age, and despite being 64 years old woman, she's managed to maintain her early 40 looks which would made every woman jealous.
Fumika heard Ichigo walk to her and smiled at him. Ah, welcome back Ichigo-kun. How is your training? The woman asked the orange-haired hybrid. Ah, you know, the usual, still not making any progress, he answered, causing the woman giggled.
Well, don't give up Ichigo-kun. I'm sure you will be able to control your power. Fumika spoke to Ichigo. Ever since Ichigo had saved her and Morita from that creature 3 months ago, Fumika had been more curious when it comes to supernatural subject. Ichigo himself said that he's not very knowledge about it. And as much as she loved to gossip it to her friends, Fumika always keep it quite to herself. I see the cafe was crowded as always. Ichigo noted as he eyed the dirty kitchen tools over the stove. A pang of guilt started rising. Yes, even though you're having holiday today, that doesn't stop the customer from coming here. Fumika stated as she finished washing the dish. While living with the Masakazu, Ichigo learned that they had a small cafe at the corner of Shibuya District. It was a rather small, traditional cafe called Bleach Cafe, which normally doesn't have many customers since it lost to compete with many modern cafe in Shibuya. That was when Ichigo hired himself as a waiter. With his, Fumika said this to him, handsome and wild look, perhaps Ichigo could attract many customers with it. Surprisingly, it's worked. Many customers, especially young female, and even some tourists from other countries were coming to this cafe on his first day working here. Ever since then, their business had just skyrocketed through the heaven. The cafe opens from 8 o'clock a.m. to 10 p.m. It served many traditional Japanese foods and drinks with some touch of modern culinary. By the way, Fumika-san, do you have some curry left? I'm kinda hungry, Ichigo said as he was looking for a plate and spoon.
There are some in the oven, I've warmed it for you. The old woman said as she untied her apron and hanged it on hanger. Thanks. You can go home, Fumika-san. I'll washing this after I've eat. Ichigo spoke as he pulled out a bowl of curry from the oven.
Don't forget to close the cafe, Ichigo-kun. Fumika said playfully. Ichigo just nodded his head while responded with a, yeah, to her. As she opened the back door, she told Ichigo one more thing. Oh, one more thing. There is a weird guy that had been waiting for you since the morning. I've already told him that you're having day off today, but he wouldn't listen and decide to wait for you. Make sure you meet him and find out what does he want. Fumika told Ichigo before she left the cafe and headed to her home. And make sure you charged him for his sake.
Ichigo just raised an eyebrow when Fumika mentioned a guy was waiting for him before he closed his eyes and scanned the cafe.
True enough, there was somebody whose strength could match the like of Byakuya was sitting on one of the table in cafe. Ichigo sighed tiredly as he began to eat his late dinner, not bothering to hurry despite having someone waiting for him. Then again, this guy had been waiting for him all day long, so another couple of minutes wouldn't kill him, right?
After Ichigo finished his dinner, he put the dish on the sink, planning to wash them later before headed to the front room.
He then spotted a man in his mid-20s with black hair, golden bangs, and black goatee sitting on one of the chairs in this cafe with few bottles of sake of the table. The man also clad in purple coat with black belts adorning them and charcoal-colored trousers with black shoes. Ichigo stared at the man for a moment while he didn't seem to notice Ichigo walked in. In the past 3 months, he hadn't seen any sign of Aizen or Yhwach. But during that time, he seems already attracted many supernatural beings in this universe, devils, angels, yokai, dragons, even deities.
But Ichigo knew this man didn't fit into those categories of all supernatural creatures he had encountered.
Can I help you? Ichigo announced his presence to the man while watching every bit of his actions with a scowl on his face. The man jerked out to his direction, seemingly caught off guard but regained his composure and smiled at him. Ah, Kurosaki Ichigo, I've been expecting you to come. The stranger greeted Ichigo, which made him scowl even more. The fact this man knew his name was a sign for Ichigo to keep his guard up around him.
I see my name is so well known, is there anything you need from me? Ichigo questioned the stranger.
The man just grinned at him in response. Ah yes, I just want to see a man who had become a hot stuff among supernatural being. The man said with a carefree demeanor. If seeing me is all you wanted, then your time is up. Please leave or I'll make you. Ichigo stated casually without a hint of arrogance in his voice.
Even with the seals in his body, he is still capable kicking this man out from the cafe. The stranger's smile vanished when Ichigo just stated that. He knew that was a promise, not a threat. A signal for him to get on the business.
The man just sighed tiredly. And the rumor said you were an easygoing man. Sir Zek will pay for this. The man mumbled to himself, earning a confused look from Ichigo. The stranger then revealed 6 pairs of jet black crow wings spread out from his back. Let me properly introduce myself. My name is Azazel, the leader of Fallen Angel organization known as Grigori. Nice to meet you. I would say it's a pleasure to meet you, but that would be a blatant lie. Ichigo replied bluntly, causing Azazel chalked up an eyebrow.
Did you have something against Fallen Angel? Azazel inquired in curiosity. Not really, you're the first fallen angel I've ever met. It's just you reminded me of someone I know. Ichigo replied with a shrug.
It was the truth. Azazel gives his this vibe similar to that of Urahara Kazuki. And anything involving that creepy shopkeeper is probably not a good thing. Then I won't waste your time any longer, I have few questions that I'd like to ask you. Azazel said as he motioned Ichigo to sit with him.
Sorry, I would prefer to stand. Ichigo declined and Azazel just shrugged it off. Also, make it quick. Cause I'm in the bad mood right now. That's entirely the truth. He's still upset he hadn't made a progress in controlling his Ryotsu.
Okay, I'll be blunt, what are you? Kurosaki Ichigo. Azazel didn't beat around the bush.
Ichigo wasn't really surprised at the question. In fact, he was expecting it. I'm a freak. A combination between few races which I have no intention to reveal to you, though I could say I'm partly human. Ichigo answered, Mixing lies with truth.
Azazel rubbed his finger on his chin thoughtfully. How much of human in you? The leader of Fallen Angel asked second question.
25%, more or less I don't really know, Ichigo replied again. Then you have about 4 or 5 races mixing within you. Azazel deduced, causing Ichigo narrowed his eyes and while mentally kicked himself for giving the man hint of what he actually is. Though he was confident Azazel wouldn't be able to figure out the other 3 races within him.
You could say that. Ichigo then decided he had enough. If that's all you wanted to ask, then please leave. I need to close the cafe. Ichigo then turned around and headed for the kitchen.
Hold on. I heard you take few jobs from other factions, is that the truth? Azazel called out and Ichigo stopped from his track. Yes, it is. What of it? He raised an eyebrow at Azazel. Do you mind if I hire you for some errands? The payment is quite decent, Azazel stated, causing Ichigo narrowed his eyes at him.
He wasn't stupid. If he accepts it, Azazel will surely use this to observe and study him. However, perhaps Azazel could prove himself useful by providing him with information he needs. Ichigo then made his decision. Not at all, but my schedules are full for next few months. Do you mind waiting for a little bit? Ichigo asked and Azazel nodded his head.
Of course not, call me when you're ready, okay. Azazel then pulled a card and threw it at Ichigo who caught it easily. See you around, Kurosaki Ichigo.
And with that, the leader of Grigori left the Bleach Cafe. Ah shit, he hasn't paid for the sake. Fumika-san will skins me alive for this. Ichigo mumbled to himself with a slight fear in his voice. Ichigo stared at the card in his hand while having conversation with both of his spirits. Are you sure it's healthy, King? Unlike many other your employer, that kind of remind me of that creepy shopkeeper, though not as much. Zangetsu pointed out his thought and Ichigo agreed with him on the last part. He perhaps have some information I need regarding Yhwach or Aizen. And from what I heard from my previous employers, Azazel has many connections on this planet. Ichigo explained as he flipped the card and saw a phone number behind it. The risk is too high if he has learned so much about you, Ichigo. Quincy Zangetsu warned the hybrid. Don't worry, I will try not to reveal too much. Ichigo stuffed the card into his pocket and entered the kitchen. Only to find Ophis was sitting on the counter while playfully kicking her legs to the air. Ah, I see you've considered my offer, Ichigo said, gaining her attention. She hopped off the counter and walked towards the hybrid. Yes, what that her answer. Good, meet me here tomorrow at 8 p.m. And I'll help you with your problem. Ophis nodded her head before she opened a portal and headed for Dimension Gap. Ichigo watched her disappear and couldn't help but smile. Tomorrow will be interesting, he thought to himself before he went to finish washing the kitchen tools and closing the cafe. Estadio Santiago Bernabeu, the home stadium for Real Madrid Club de Football, or more well known as Real Madrid, one of the most famous football club in the world. With the current seating capacity of 110,000 of seats, it has hosted some prestigious matches such as UEFA Champions League Final and FIFA World Cup Final. Currently, the stadium was full of attendances. The seats were dominated by white-colored jersey, which indicating the amount of Real Madrid supporters. There were some sections of the stadium that was covered in blue-red jersey, indicating the amount of the supporters of the current guest club that was currently playing against Real Madrid. The Real Madrid's arch-rival, Football Club Barcelona, are commonly known as Barcelona. The rivalry between these two clubs can only be beaten by the long rivalry between Angels and Devils. Every match including these two teams will always be referred as El Clásico, which was full of intensity, drama, conflict, and amazing goals from both teams. Sometime the match ended up in draw though. El Clásico, the name was given to all matches between these Real Madrid and Barcelona. Other than the UEFA Champions League final, it was considered one of the biggest club football games in the world, and was among the most viewed annual sporting events. It has always been a heated match, from both sides. Currently, Barcelona leads in total matches with 110 wins while Real Madrid has 99 wins. But soon, the Real Madrid will reach their 100 wins because Beckham to Figo, Zidane with beautifully gap, Beckham back heels and Zidane. Oh, what a goal. What a stunning teamwork from Real Madrid. Just few minutes before the final whistle and Zinedine Zidane has done it again. 2-1 Real. Because Real Madrid center forward, Zinedine Zidane, just scored a goal. Real Madrid's supporters let out a deafened, earth-shocking roar of excitement while Barcelona's supporters could only watch in utter silence as their favorite team got scored by their opponent in the last minutes.
Among those of Real Madrid's supporters, there was one particular man that wasn't celebrating over the goal while watching the match from his VVIP seats.
The man appeared to be a very handsome mild-featured man with brown hair that was swept back with a strand hanging down his face, enhanced by square glasses, along with soft but menacing brown eyes. He wore the standard tuxedo complete with a pair of very expensive-looking black-colored skin shoes and a fedora hat. It was a right decision to buy Zidane, isn't it, Chairman? A 40-years-old-looking businessman who sat beside the chairman spoke, which amused the chairman a bit.
Barcelona began to kick off the ball and attempted to equalize the score.
Of course it was. Hiring Zidane from Juventus had been nothing but a part of my plan since I took over the club. The chairman replied smoothly as he drank his wine. And to pull up such feat with the cheapest price for a player at Zidane's caliber is making me wonder how many great player you can hire with the lowest budget ever. The businessman spoke as he noticed the chairman stood to his feet and grabbed his briefcase that was rested beside him. Leaving already? The match isn't over yet. The businessman raised an eyebrow.
The chairman laughed smoothly at that. Trust me, the match is already over, and with that remark, the chairman began to leave his VVIP seats. The referee blows the final whistle and the match is over. Barcelona has leads on the first half, but thanks from the overwhelming strike from Real, plus the Mages from Zidane, they couldn't keep their leads in the second half.
The chairman doesn't even bother to listen to what the commentary said as he walked through the long empty corridor of the stadium while heading towards the front gate. As soon as he reached the front gate, a very luxurious limousine was waiting for him.
Standing next to the limousine was a very beautiful, early 20-looking woman with long purple hair tied into a ponytail. She also has a pair of cold, almost soulless blood-red eyes that sent the chill through the spine of the very bravest man on earth.
She wore a very beautiful strapless purple dress with red rose decoration on the left chest, a pair of matching purple evening gloves and a pair of silver high heels. Otsukara-sama desu, Anata, I believe you're quite pleased at the result. The purple-haired woman greeted as she gave the man a sensual smile. The chairman of Real Madrid Club de Football gave the woman his own smooth smile which would have melted down the heart of every girl who seeing it.
Yes, Isa, it was quite entertaining. The chairman replied smoothly at the lovely woman, whose name had just been revealed as Isa, and opened the door for her like how a gentleman should act, allowing Isa to get into the limo which soon followed by the owner of Real Madrid before the limo drive off the stadium.
Unknown time, dimension gap. A little girl in a gothic Lolita outfit was doing her floating routine throughout the dimension gap. She let out a rare smile as she closed her eyes while enjoying the silence of her home. Woo-woo, but not for a long time. Her eyes twitched in annoyance as she glared at the gigantic red dragon known as Great Red who, I kid you not, was doing some aerobical stunt like to that of military jets. Can't a girl get a break around here? Ophis, Ouroboros dragon, the infinity dragon god, thought in pure irritation while trying to suppress the overwhelming urge to cast some destructive spells and fired it at that annoying dragon.
Ophis' greatest trait wasn't her immense power that made even the like of Hindu god of destruction Shiva pale in comparison, but her immeasurable patience. Woo ho 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 hoo. Although right now, she had reached her breaking point. That's it, Ichi, you're gonna help me get rid of the red, now.
With a snap of her finger a portal that led to Earth appeared in front of her before she impatiently jumped into the portal, leaving a dumbfounded Great Red who just shrugged before continued his routine stunts again. Wednesday, March 4, 1997, 11:42 a.m., DXD Universe, Earth, Asia, Japan, Tokyo, Shibuya District, Bleach Cafe.
Kya, Kurosaki-kun, it's him, it's really him.
He's so handsome as always. He's even dreamier than the rumor said about him. Don't you think he's still single? With that handsome face like that, no way. But if he's, Hya. Ichigo grumbled under his breath as he really did his best not to open up a garganta and threw those girls into the endless, bottomless of darkness. He sometimes felt uncomfortable with his job. Don't get him wrong, being a waiter for the peoples who gave you home and foods was really a fun job to him. That's the least he can do to pay their kindness, although the Masakazu insisted that it's the other way around. But sometimes he really considered himself to find another job.
Fangirls. That's the source of his endless irritation. They'd never stop squealing and giggling at him whenever he took their orders. Sometimes he complained this to Fumika, who suggested him that he shouldn't and couldn't really blame those girls since it was all his fault.
How could it be my fault? It's your fault for having such a look. Way my look have anything to do with this? Just look at yourself, Ichigo-kun. I mean, your shoulder-length spiky orange hair makes you looks like a, what's the word again, right, baddest bad boy from some action movie. Any girl who say you're ugly really need to see a doctor.
Ichigo mentally groaned at that memory. Consulted to Fumika didn't really help him at all. Thought he had to admit one thing when he saw himself in the mirror this morning.
Fumika was right, he is really one handsome mother. May I take you order? Ichigo, clad in his waiter outfit while did his best trying to hide his irritation, asked a group of 5 high school girls who had occupied a table near the windows.
Ah yes, we'd like to try strawberry sunrise with no ice. Oh, please add an orange strawberry on my glass, if you know what I mean. A girl, seems to be the leader of the group, winked at Ichigo, gaining some girlish giggles from her friends.
Oh Mako, you're so naughty. Her friends remarked while laughing all the while.
Ichigo wrote down the order before retreated back to the kitchen and proceeded to make 5 strawberry sunrises for the customers. After he finished, he put the beverages on the tray, walked out the kitchen and headed to the designated table.
He placed the beverages on the table, right in front of each girl. Here are your orders, ladies, he said rather forcefully while still maintaining his cool face. Oh thank you, Kurosaki-kun. You're really a gentleman, but where is my orange strawberry? The girl, Mako if he's not mistaken, both asking and teasing at him at the same time. This caused her friends giggled again. My apologize, but our orange strawberry gardens were died before they could even fully grow. He replied with the smallest scowl he could muster before retreated from the table. Oh, even while scowling he is still a hunk, Mako remarked, which gained a nod of approval from her friends. Ichigo sat near the cashier where Fumika were standing behind it. He helped himself with some fresh water before turned to the old woman. You're enjoying this, aren't you? Ichigo asked rhetorically, earning a giggle from the female Masakazu. Always. It's really hard not to laugh while seeing you squirming around girls. I didn't know you're such a prude, Fumika said, earning a look of disbelief from the orange-haired hybrid.
Ichigo groaned at this. I'm not a prude, I just have no interest in forming any kind of relationship while those two are still on the loose. Ichigo replied, causing his female boss scowled.
Ichigo-kun, could you please not thinking about any supernatural-related subject just for one day and enjoy your normal life? Fumika asked quietly with a rather serious tone she rarely used. Unfortunately I can't. Supernatural has been part of my life since the day I was born. You see Fumika-san, the 2 madmans have been chasing for each has the power to wipe out the whole world several times over. As long as they are still around, it's impossible for me to have a normal life.
His answer really saddened the female Masakazu as she stared at the orange-haired hybrid with sad eyes. In her eyes, Kurosaki Ichigo was a just confused young man who cannot decide whether his power was a gift or a curse. From the deepest of his soul, he was cursing to whatever god out there who gave him his power, which caused him unable to live as normal teenager. But at the same time, he was thanking them for giving him his power, allowing him to live in his namesake.
Ichigo. One who protect. Ichigo-kun, the food is ready. A voice that belongs to Masakazu Morita was heard from the kitchen, snapping Fumika from her train of thought.
Coming, Ichigo called out as he stood back to his feet and headed for the kitchen. I'm sorry Fumika-san, we'll talk later okay? Fumika just nodded solemnly as she watched the orange-haired teen retreated to the kitchen.
Oh Ichigo-kun, I know you loves protecting people, but you're still far too young to shoulder the fate of entire world by yourself.
2 hours later, Phew, I'm beat. Ichigo sighed tiredly as he wiped the sweats from his forehead while cool himself down with a magazine. Masakazu Morita laughed a little at this. You worked hard as usual, Ichigo-kun," he stated while handed the teenager a glass of cold water which he received it gladly.
"Can't be helped, there were more customers today than usual, and those girls from before just made this day feels like hell," Ichigo replied as he drank the cool water, relieved his sore throat. Fumika giggled while remembering the group of girls that constantly tried to hit on Ichigo. Fumika gotta give them credits for their persistence, but she doubt none of them would accept the fact that Ichigo wasn't a normal, desirable guy they ever dreamed of. "Yufufu, like I said, Ichigo-kun, can you really blame them?" Fumika asked the rhetorical question.
Ichigo didn't answer that, knowing the fact that was a rhetorical question. Or more like he doesn't want to openly admit it that he was so goddamn handsome.
Ever since he has arrived in this universe, his hair now has grew longer and he has gotten taller than the time after his training in Dongai.
Like Fumika said, he couldn't really blame those girls for fawning over him.
"Perhaps I should get that green-stripped bucket hat like Urahara-san and those girls will finally leave me alone," Ichigo thought with a small grin on his face.
"Oh god, no, don't you dare mimicking that creepy shopkeeper, one is bad enough, thank you very much," Zangetsu threatened from within his inner world. "For once, Ichigo, I have to agree with him," Quincy Zangetsu added, earning a raised eyebrow from the hybrid. It was a rare occasion for the old man to agree with his white doppelganger.
"Ichigo-kun," the orange-haired hybrid was snapped out of his thought when Morita called him while snapping his fingers right in front of his face.
I'm sorry. What was that?" Ichigo asked confusedly. Morita just sighed at this, knowing what just happened. "You're talking to the spirits inside of your body again, aren't you?" he inquired, not really need the answer.
Ichigo just scratched the back of his head sheepishly. "Yeah, they're ganging up on me this time. It's not every day," the old man agreed with Zangetsu. Ichigo replied, remembering the last time they agreed with each other. Ichigo shuddered at the memories. Fumika just smiled at the boy, momentarily forgetting about the serious talk he had with him earlier, before she heard someone entered the cafe.
She turned towards the door and smiled at the customer. Welcome to Bleach Cafe. Please, have a seat." Fumika greeted the customer, who happens to be a very beautiful woman.
The woman has long, flawless, elegant black hair that reached down to her knees and a pair soul-piercing red eyes. She also has very flawless body that made every supermodel around the world would kill to get one. Her outfit was consisted of highly ornate dressed, as if signifying this woman was from royalty.
Ichigo finally laid his eyes at the customer and widened his eyes, recognizing the beautiful woman who silently releasing an aura that could easily match his current level.
The beautiful woman sat one of the seats elegantly. Fumika then approached the woman. "Is there anything you would like to order?" Fumika asked while preparing her notepad. The woman gave Fumika an elegant smile. "No, thank you, although if you don't mind, I would like to have a private talk with Ichigo-kun. We're friends since childhood and I would like to catch up with him without interruption," the woman politely requested to the female Masakazu, who raised her eyebrow at the woman as her smile dropped.
Not to be rude, but are you another supernatural being that was attracted to Ichigo-kun? 'Cause even I won't buy such a terrible lie like that," Fumika asked the woman rather bluntly, earning a sigh from Morita and a facepalm from Ichigo.
If the woman was surprised, she really did a really good job in hiding it. "Oh, you're aware of supernatural world." It was more a statement than a question. "How much do you know?"
Fumika just shrugged her shoulder. "Not much, but since the day I and my husband was attacked by some creepy creature, I know such thing like devils or exist," the Masakazu replied, earning a nod from the other woman. "I see. Then it will be easier. Still, can I talk to Ichigo-kun? We have some business to talk about," the woman requested again, emphasized the word business, which caused Fumika's smile back. "Of course, please take as much time as you need. Ichigo-kun really needed to find himself a woman after all," Fumika said in rather sly tone before she retreated back towards her husband and the hybrid. Her last statement earned a raised eyebrow from the customer. The female Masakazu clearly misinterpreted the word business in the woman's sentences. Fumika then walked towards Ichigo, Now Ichigo-kun. Why don't you be a good boy and talk your lovely friend while I'm preparing some dessert for both of you? Fumika ordered with a too-sweet smile and hanched with a too-sweet tone as she retreated to the kitchen.
I'll flip over the sign. Morita muttered tiredly as he walked towards the front door and flipped the sign from open to close, so no one would accidentally overhear their conversation. Ichigo cooled just face-palmed even harder. Oh Fumika-san, if only you knew who you're talking to. The hybrid thought to himself, earning a nod of agreement from both his spirits that resided inside of his soul. Ichigo took a seat, at the opposite of the woman who looked at him with a strange look on her face. But Ichigo caught the hidden message. Don't ask. Was that all his reply? The woman just gave him a nod of understanding.
Few minutes later, Fumika came out from the kitchen with 2 glasses of green tea ice cream on a tray. She gave each to both Ichigo and the mysterious woman. Ichigo looked at the dessert with a raised eyebrow before he turned to Fumika. I didn't know we serve green tea ice cream here, he noted curiously. We don't, this menu is special only for this kind of occasion. The female Masakazu simply answered and gestured the mysterious customer to try the ice cream. The woman complied as she picked up a spoon and took a tiny amount of the dessert and tasted it. She widened her eyes a little before quickly hid it well.
Although, this didn't gone unnoticed by Ichigo. Ichigo immediately took a spoon and tasted the ice cream for himself and was utterly shocked to his core at the taste. Holy shit, no wonder she looks so impressed. Ichigo thought to himself in pure shock and awe. The dessert was the best dessert he'd ever tasted. No one can trump it, not even the one Yuzu usually made for him. Well, Fumika asked expectantly while holding the tray to her chest. The mysterious woman gave her a genuine smile. I have to admit, this is the best dessert I'd ever tasted. The woman complimented as she took some of the dessert again and put it in her mouth. Thank you. Fumika beamed into a smile that made her face look 10 years younger than her actual age. Ichigo nodded in agreement as he helped himself with the ice cream again, clearly addicted by the dessert. By the way Ichigo-kun, you haven't introduced your lovely friend to us. Morita joined in the group, seemingly bored in the sideline for a while.
Fumika realized it and gave Ichigo a disapproval look. TCH, how could you Ichigo-kun? How could you not even mention to have such a beautiful friend like her? Fumika reprimanded the orange-haired hybrid like a mother reprimanded her son while emphasized the word of friend. This caused Ichigo openly groaned as he gripped his head as if he had a headache. Fine. His answer caused the couple to smile victoriously. But don't blame me if you guys got heart attack, okay? This was confused the Masakazus greatly.
Ichigo took a very deep breath before exhaled it and properly introduced the mysterious guest to the couple.
Morita-san, Fumika-san. This woman is Amaterasu Omakami, the Shinto goddess of sun the Japanese is worshipping. 3, 2, 1. Clang clang clong. The metal tray slipped out from Fumika's grasp when she and her husband heard the name of the woman what was sitting right not a feet away from here. They stared at her with in shock, awe, and fear.
Shock. Because they didn't expect such significant person to be in their small, humble cafe.
Awe. Because to think that a real goddess to be this beautiful, her beauty far outclassed to that of world most famous supermodels. Fear. Because they just teased the hell out of her in having some affair with Ichigo.
So the Masakazu did what any normal mortal could do in front of such divine being, they groveled in front of the goddess of sun. Please forgive our rudeness Amaterasu-sama. We really have no idea who we're talking to. The couple begged for forgiveness in fear, clearly they were afraid to receive some divine punishment from the goddess.
Fortunately, being the usually magnanimous deity that she was, Amaterasu waved off and didn't make a fuss about it. It's quite understandable really. There is no need to apologize. Please raise your heads. Amaterasu stated as she gestured the couple to stand.
The Masakazu stood back to their feet, still tried to comprehend their current predicament. Although, Fumika was acting like a giddy girl a little bit.
But still, for the deity we're worshipping is visiting our cafe. Fumika began to giggle while Ichigo and Morita could see a glint in her eye. This is definitely an experience worth bragging of.
Her statement did really scared the two men in the building. Oh no dear, Not only no one would believe in you, but we cannot really mention any supernatural-related subjects openly, remember? Morita responded, causing the female Masakazu pouted cutely despite her old age. Ahem. Amaterasu cleared her throat, earning the attention from the Bleach Cafe's personnel, who blushed slightly caused they just embarrassed themselves in front such important person.
As amusing as this conversation is, I'm afraid I must interrupt. Would you mind if we can go straight to why I am here, Ichigo-kun? Amaterasu Omikami stated in smooth, yet authoritative tone.
The hybrid in question just nodded. Dealing with the Masakazu's antic really took a lot of him. Yes, I guess. Ichigo sighed before turned towards the couple. Fumika-san, Morita-san, could you please wait for me in the kitchen? This subject is very sensitive that we cannot afford normal humans to hear it. Ichigo politely asked the couple, who nodded in understanding and retreated to the kitchen. As soon as they entered the kitchen, Amaterasu waved her left hand elegantly, casting some magical barrier around the main room for precaution before she looked at Ichigo. Thank you, Ichigo-kun. Ichigo just nodded before Amaterasu continued. Now, before we could start at why I'm here, I would like to ask you about my earlier offer. Would you like to join Shinto faction, Ichigo-kun? Amaterasu asked with a sharp look that justified to her authority as a goddess.
Ichigo's face turned into his very serious face with no sign of surprise in it. He inhaled a deep breath before exhaled them and answered the question. With all due respect, Amaterasu-san, I have to decline the offer. Ichigo replied with a very serious tone as he returned Amaterasu's stern gaze with his own. They were having staring contest for a minute before the goddess of sun asked another question. Are you afraid we're gonna abuse your power? The goddess of sun asked again as she took a good chunk of her ice cream before put into her mouth. Ichigo scratched the back of his head at this. That's partly the reason. The goddess of sun raised an eyebrow at this. Another is that if I join your faction, then I would be affected to all Shinto's political status with all other factions. While all of the factions are in state of uneasy ceasefire now, the Shinto faction in particular is currently on the brink of war with Underworld. And possibly Grigori as well. There is no reason for me to be involved into your mess. Not to mention, I have my own war against Aizen and Yhwach, so I don't need another one, especially the war that doesn't concern me in the slightest. Ichigo added in his mind, which earned a series nodded of agreement from both of Zangetsu.
Amaterasu was a bit disappointed at this, but she understands Ichigo's fear. She was no fool. Despite Ichigo did his best to suppress it, the Shinto goddess of sun can still felt the gargantuan power within the boy. She has no intention to abuse it, but she knew that someone at his caliber would be a very valuable asset for any existing factions.
I understand. Amaterasu replied, accepting Ichigo's decision, albeit reluctantly. She helped herself with the green tea dessert Fumika kindly provided for her. It surprisingly calmed her mind after hearing Ichigo's rejection to her offer.
Ichigo nodded his head as he took a bite for himself before asking. I'm afraid that's not why you are here. Ichigo said with very serious tone. Amaterasu get the hidden messages that tell her to get into it.
Yes, Ichigo-kun. That's not why I am here. Amaterasu wiped some cream from her face with a napkin before placed the piece of cloth on the table. Do you remember that incident in Kyoto a month ago?
The incident when some devils tried to kidnap Yusaka Haim and her daughter. The goddess nodded her head in confirmation. How could I? I was practically involved in it. Sunday, February 3, 1997, 9:21 p.m., DXD Universe, Earth, Asia, Japan, Kyoto, a month ago.
I think I lost. Again, Ichigo cursed under his breath as soon as he stepped out from the Garganta.
He was currently training his mastery of creating Garganta so he could travel from a place to place more efficiently. He has done what Zangetsu told him, which involving tearing the fabric of space itself and stabilized each tear with Raryoku diffused dark matter. The process wasn't like a walk in the park like that bastard was always telling him. When you tear the fabric of space itself, there were at least thousands of fragments of space were scrambling out of control and he had to stabilize each of them in the matter of seconds. It was a bitch, but he finally managed to do it. There is another problem though. He, for some unknown reason, cannot set the right coordinates of his destination. Which is the reason why he was in the middle of dark forest in God know where. His stomach was growling all of a sudden, which made sense since he hadn't eaten anything today. Better find some place to eat. Still wonder where I am though. Ichigo mumbled to himself as began walk through the forest.
Somebody, help. But not even he had takes a single step, the orange-haired hybrid heard someone was yelling for help. And judging by the voice, it was a female.
Ichigo protective instinct kicked in as he vanished in burst of shunpo and headed towards the source. When he arrived, he could see a group of winged creatures with tail were cornering a woman who protectively hugged a little girl who Ichigo guessed was her daughter. The woman was very beautiful, her long blonde hair and her golden eyes was seemingly shining under the moonlight. But what caught his attention was the animal ears that were sticking out from the top of her head and the 9 tails that seems look like fox tail behind her. The child that was with her has the similar appearance as well, only for the girl's hair was short compared to the older woman. Surrender Yusaka Haim, the creatures who seemed to be the leader demanded to the woman, Yusaka, while advancing towards her. No, Yusaka defiantly answered back as she pointed her palm towards the group of creatures while trying to concentrate her ki on her palm. The 9-tailed fox lady was shocked when she found out she couldn't even channel an even slight amount of her ki. This made the leader of the group of creatures laugh. Ha 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 ha. We have put some magical potion in your food that will make you unable to use senjutsu for 24 hours. If you come with us peacefully, we promise we won't hurt you. He stated again while still advancing towards the blonde woman. How about go to the hell where you came from, devils? Yusaka ignored the fact she just cursed in front of her daughter who was still crying in her mother embrace. So those things are devils. They are so similar to the one that attacked Fumika-san and Morita-san back then. Ichigo thought as he processed the information he just get while still watching the scene, waiting for his cue to butt in. The leader of devils sighed as he rubbed his forehead. Well, Leviathan-sama ordered us to deliver you to her unharmed. But I think she wouldn't mind if you have few minor bruises on you, you're making this difficult after all. The leader said as he prepared his weapon, which happened to be a black trisula. Yusaka's eyes were filled with determination to protect her daughter. But since she was unable to use her senjutsu, thanks to whatever potion those devils had put in her dinner today, she had to rely on her skill in hand-to-hand. The thing is, she had little to no skill at all in hand-to-hand, since she thought she wouldn't really need it. And despite being few times physically stronger than regular humans, a human with black belt in any form of martial arts could easily take her down.
Yusaka readied herself as the leader of this group of devils charged at her. Zarish. But she widened her eyes in shock. And somewhat horror when a small black blade flew through the devil's neck, decapitated him in a second. The headless body crashed in front of Yusaka as the head bounced on the ground few times before it rolled towards the other devils who were frozen still at the sight of their leader died just like that. Is this what all devils can do? Ganging up on a woman who cannot defend herself?
All of them heard a male voice from inside of a large bush as a young man with orange hair and brown eyes come out from the bush. He was wearing black shihakusho with 2 white shoulder plates crossing his chest in an X shape that hold a black large blade in place, with the plate on his left shoulder having 3 sections adorned with red scales, and a white cloak with black markings tied around his waist. Ichigo raised his right hand, used some form of telekinesis ability to call the smaller Zangetsu that killed the leader of this group of devils to his hand before secure it on his left waist.
Who are you? State your name, stranger, one of the devils demanded as he readied his weapon, which actions was soon to be followed by his 50 of his subordinates. Ichigo just scowled at him as he reached to the larger Zangetsu on his back. My name is none of your concern. He replied boringly as he twirled Zangetsu a little, which made Yusaka to wisely took a step back in fear. Since you're gonna die anyway. With a casual swing, Ichigo fired a tremendous amount of concussive force, wiping out all of 51 devils in one go before they could do or say something. The force was so powerful that has blown away half of the forest and vaporized over half of a mountain that was unfortunate enough to be within Ichigo's attack range.
As the dust was clear, Ichigo went pale when he saw the destruction he just caused.
You've gotta be kidding. A Kanatsu could do this much destruction? He practically yelled in shock as he was examining his handiwork. For the last time, Kingy, stop being surprised at how powerful you have become. It's really annoying. Zangetsu whined from within his inner world. But I've never been this powerful when I thought old man was my Shinigami power. Ichigo inquired stubbornly.
What I gave you back then, was just a little portion of your true Shinigami power. Me, not wanting you to become Shinigami was just one of the reasons why I had to suppress your Shinigami power, from the fact you weren't worth of it yet, to your body cannot handle that much power at once back then. Quincy Zangetsu explained. I see, then I should be more careful from now on. Ichigo nodded in understanding before he remembered the woman he had saved and turned towards her, who was staring at him wide, her eyes as wide as saucers.
Are you okay, miss? Ichigo politely asked the blonde woman who was snapped out of her stupor. Why yes, I'm unharmed. Just a little weak from whatever potion they had mixed into my dinner today. Yusaka replied as she felt her daughter slowly poked out her head from behind of her mother.
Ichigo sighed in relief at that as he put back Zangetsu on his back. I'm glad. He then noticed the little girl slowly come out from her mother and confronted him from the safe distance. Thank you. For saving me and my mother, mister. The girl thanked the hybrid timidly.
Ichigo just waved off his hand. Don't sweat it, kid, it's not a big deal. He replied in friendly manner, causing the little girl blushed before he turned to her mother. Would you mind telling me where are we right now? We're in western outskirts of Kyoto, which happen to be our popular tourist district. Yusaka replied before she slightly bowed at Ichigo. My name is Yusaka, the leader of Yukai in Kyoto. And this is my daughter Kuno. She properly introduced her daughter and herself to the orange-haired hybrid.
Pleasure to meet you. The little girl, Kuno, bowed at him in cute manner.
Ichigo just nodded friendly at the two before his face turned into his serious mode. Can you walk home by yourself? He looked at Yusaka, who flinched meekly at his gaze. Why yes. That big attack of yours may have alerted my guard. They're probably on their way here as we speak. The ruler of Yukai answered, causing Ichigo nodded his head. Very well, I guess I should take my leave. I don't want them to mistaken me as an enemy. Ichigo then turned around. See you around, Yusaka-san, Kuno-chan. He waved his goodbye as he began to walk away. Wait, mister. Kuno suddenly called for the hybrid in timid manner, causing him to stop and turn towards the little Yukai. Could you please tell me your name, mister? She asked the orange-haired hybrid timidly. Ichigo stared at her for a moment before he vanished in a burst of shunpo. The mother and daughter were saddened at this, but it soon changed when they heard their savior's answer. The name is Kurosaki Ichigo. Wednesday, March 4, 1997, 2:17 p.m., DXD Universe, Earth, Asia, Japan, Tokyo, Shibuya District, Bleach Cafe, present time. Yes, I heard the story from my daughter. Thanks again for saving her, Ichigo-kun. The goddess of sun thanked Ichigo genuinely before narrowed her eyes at him dangerously. Though I heard you had left a scar to our famous Arashi mountain, which is very, very noticeable to ordinary humans, to the point we were having a rather tough times just to provide a perfect cover-up story. Amaterasu didn't even bother to hide her annoyance when she said this, causing our favorite hybrid tug the collar of his waiter uniform uneasily. Whether it was a goddess or a merely ordinary human, an angry woman is the greatest danger a man could ever encounter. Well, I'm kinda suck at holding back. Ichigo trailed off. Holding back. Amaterasu slammed her hands on the table angrily, causing the orange-haired hybrid comically freaked out. Like I said, angry women are really, really dangerous even for someone as powerful as our favorite hybrid. Okay, I'm sorry. I didn't do that on purpose, can we move on please? Ichigo practically begged while holding his hands in defense. Amaterasu let out a very tired sigh and she occupied her seat again while rubbing her temple. I'm really sorry for my outburst, Ichigo-kun, but you really have caused much more trouble than those devils. Amaterasu stated, helping herself with the green tea ice cream to calm her down. Well, suck to be you. Ichigo remarked, causing the goddess sent a warning glare at the teenager. Anyway, what does that incident have anything to do with why you are here? He inquired, brushing off her glare. Yes, Ichigo-kun. I'm sure you're aware that the reason why we're on the brink of war with devils is because that particular incident, correct? Ichigo nodded his head at this. Well, a devil, specifically Mao Leviathan herself, had requested for a conference to clarify that she wasn't the one behind that kidnap attempt. Ichigo's face turned serious again at this. Leviathan? Isn't that the name that those devils mentioned during kidnapping attempt on Yusaka-san? Ichigo wondered out loud. The goddess of sun nodded her head in confirmation. The same, she replied as she watched Ichigo rub his forehead dizzily. Okay, I understand about the need for this conference, but what do I have anything to do with this? Ichigo asked again. Fortunately, the goddess was expecting that question and had already prepared an answer beforehand. The reason I'm here is that I would like to hire you as a guard in that conference. Amaterasu revealed her intention, earning a raised eyebrow from Ichigo. The Devil faction, despite not being backed up with living god, is one of the most powerful faction that exist. They have 4 irregular devils known as super devils, whose power could match to that of gods like us.
Ichigo widened his eyes in pure surprise at this. They were devils that could match gods in this world. What next? There is a little girl who was actually a genderless dragon in disguise. Yeah, that would be spectacular. That was a sarcasm. I don't mean to question your words, but do they really that powerful that could make you reluctant to take them head on? Ichigo asked the goddess again. Said goddess nodded her head. Yes, they are really that powerful. But you're also right, we're reluctant, not unable, to go to war against them. We're confident we would win even against the 4 super devils, but it would be an unnecessary bloodshed which we dislike to the very core. It won't be an easy war.
Not without you on our side at least. Amaterasu wisely keep that last part of her thought to herself. Ichigo was in deep thought about this. This is obviously a very delicate matter. While he knew this is the perfect chance to gain some valuable intels, he was worried the other faction would paint him as a part of Shinto faction.
He doesn't want them to be within 50 feet radius from Bleach Cafe or Masakazu residence. What do you think, guys? Ichigo asked both Zangetsu. I personally will follow whatever decision you made, Ichigo. Although I advises you to keep your guard up and not to reveal much about yourself to both factions. Quincy Zangetsu replied in fatherly manner.
Ichigo accepted the answer before asking the more insolent version of himself. How about you? He asked uneasily, having a hunch of knowing what answer will come. Hey, same as the old man, as long as I get to kick someone's ass while we're doing the task from the frigging hot goddess. Zangetsu replied with maniacal laugh.
Figures. Ichigo inwardly rolled his eyes and wondered to himself, why does he even bother to ask his Shinigami hollow power manifestation? The orange-haired hybrid opened his eyes and stared at the beautiful goddess intensely. Okay, I'll be your secret service in your little meeting. Ichigo's answer made the Shinto deity to smile. But her smile faded immediately. However, as long as you can convince the devils in your faction that I'm not on your side, then we have a deal. Amaterasu's smile come back and adored her beautiful face again before she stood to her feet. I can do that. The conference will be held in 3 weeks at Kyoto. Just keep everyone in the line during the meeting, okay? The goddess held up a hand for Ichigo to take. Ichigo let a grin as he too stood back to his feet and took her arm, causing the goddess flinched in pain a little. You're hiring the best for that kind of job, Amaterasu-san. He shook her hand, causing her to flinch even more as she roughly pulled her hand off Ichigo's.
Ichigo widened his eyes at this. Right, I'm really sorry, Amaterasu. It's just, I couldn't fully suppress my power. Even touching an ordinary human and weak supernatural being will guarantee their death. Ichigo noted solemnly as he stared at his hand.
Amaterasu widened her eyes in obvious shock at the revelation, though Ichigo was missed it. To be able to inflict pain to a deity by merely touching them, even if the said deity was suppressing their power. Just what in the world are you, Kurosaki Ichigo? The goddess of sun thought while finding out one disturbing fact that probably would save their life.
Not having Ichigo as an ally was already bad enough, but having him as an enemy was even worse than him not helping them. She concluded that it would be a wise move to be on his good side.
Amaterasu nodded in understanding. It's all right, Ichigo-kun. I understand your situation. Ichigo just nodded his head as he watched Amaterasu wave her right hand in the air, dispelling the barrier in seconds. You can come out now, Morita-san, Fumika-san. Ichigo called out from the 2 elderly people. The couple came out from the kitchen with Fumika was carrying a plastic bag with her hands. Ichigo raised an eyebrow at this. Are you done talking to Amaterasu-sama, Ichigo-kun? Morita asked the young man.
Yeah, we're just talking about some boring business stuff actually. Ichigo answered, causing the goddess to look at him.
It was technically the truth. he just didn't give them the details about what kind of business they talked about. The Masakazu nodded in acceptance before the female one turned towards Amaterasu. She was really nervous to be in the presence of the deity she worshipped all of her life.
How can you blame her? She's just a mortal human who just found out as truly exist. Amaterasu-sama. Fumika nervously held her hands up, presenting the plastic bag to the goddess. Please accept this humble present. We would appreciate it if you take this to Takamagahara with you. Amaterasu genuinely smiled at the mortal before her, probably because she had served her, the Shinto goddess of sun, with truly enjoyable dessert. Something that she hadn't tasted for over thousands of years.
The goddess gladly accepted the gift with a smile adored her beautiful face. Thank you. I'm sure my brothers will like it. Amaterasu spoke as she didn't need to see what inside the plastic bag. She knew it was the green tea ice cream from before.
In fact, Fumika purposely made 3 of them for her and her brothers.
Gee, thank you, Amaterasu-sama. Fumika bowed her head before raised it again. The ebony-haired goddess nodded her head before turned her attention to Ichigo. I'll take my leave now. See you again, Ichigo-kun. After saying this, the goddess of sun left the cafe before vanished from earth.
The cafe was silent for a moment before Fumika broke it.
I just met a goddess, a real goddess. The female Masakazu squealed like a giddy schoolgirl, ignoring the fact that she wasn't at that age anymore.
Morita just shook his head at his wife's antic before he noticed someone walked into the cafe. He looked at the door to find a little girl with long black hair while wearing a gothic Lolita outfit walked towards them.
The male Masakazu bent down to the girl level and smiled at her friendly. Hello little missy, what can I help you? He asked her in friendly manner, ignoring the fact she just waltzed in despite knowing the sign says close.
I need to talk to Ichi. The girl answered with stoically. Morita was frowning at this, not expecting a little girl like her could be as cold as ice.
Fortunately, Ichigo seems to hear them as he looked at Morita, only to find a familiar-looking girl with him.
Oh Ophis. He freaked out a little. He neither wasn't expecting her to come nor could he felt her entered the cafe.
Fumika seems managed to snap herself out of her stupor and looked at the males with a cute little girl with them. She automatically reverted into her schoolgirl persona again.
Ah, hello dear. Did you lost or something? Fumika asked the girl as she crouched down to her, not knowing who this girl really is. Ichi promised me to help my home invader problem. Ophis answered the seemingly older woman stoically while emphasized the words of home invader.
Although, this only made Fumika squealed even more. You're so cute Ophis-chan. She then pinched both of Ophis's cheeks and playing with them. The males just sweat dropped at the scene before them while Ophis managed to keep her blank face, not really bothered at all.
After satisfied playing with Ophis's face, Fumika then looked at the orange-haired hybrid with a rather confused look. What are you waiting for? Huh? Was that all Ichigo's respond?
Go and help her Ichigo-kun. But, Ichigo trailed off but he was interrupted again.
You heard me young man. Ophis-chan need your assistance. It's your duty as gentleman to be her knight in shining armor.
Will you listen? Go help her, now. Fumika commanded the all-powerful Kurosaki Ichigo while magically pulled out a very long and sturdy wooden spoon out of her apron, which freaked the hell out of her husband. Ichigo stared at the object in the woman's hand with obvious fear before bolted out the cafe, while messing the tables, with Ophis in tow without saying any more words. Fumika laughed while still holding the wooden spoon in the air. Gehehehehe. This thing is really useful when it comes to even the most hard-headed men in the world. She spoke proudly as she kissed the object in her hand. Yeah. But, Morita trailed off as he stared at the mess before him. Who was gonna fix this mess? The male Masakazu could felt his wife was staring at him. Her face says it all. Oh come on, why me? Fumika replied him by twirling the wooden spoon between her finger like a drummer twirling a drumstick. Morita grumbled before he proceeded placing the tables and chairs back to their original places. Fumika watched this with a smirk of victory in her face before she put the mighty weapon back to its place and retreated to the kitchen. You really have no idea how much pain that damn thing could inflict on you when you get hit by it. I would rather take on an explosion from 1,000 gigatons of nuclear weapons. Hell, I don't even know how destructive that is, but I would rather get hit by that every day rather than by Fumika's wooden spoon. The orange-haired hybrid ranted exaggeratedly.
You're being overly dramatic, Ichigo. Old man Zangetsu noted flatly, clearly not amused at his antic.
Erg, not you too, old man. Ichigo openly groaned in dismay when the old man joined his white doppelganger.
Ophis, who sat beside him on a train to their destination, snapped him out of his inner conversation with both Zangetsu with her small voice. Ichigo looked at her with a questionable look on his face.
Yes, when will you help me get rid of Great Red? Ophis asked blankly, but there is a tiny bit of hope in her voice.
Ichigo just sighed at the question as he put his hand on top of her head. This is the 7th time she asked him the question. Later, okay. I promise I'll help you with your problem. He then patted her head lightly, not fearing that he would kill her.
Due his insane amount of Reiatsu, also due his inability in controlling them, no one was completely vulnerable when he touched them. Even a deity like Amaterasu was still affected by it. Ophis is the only person so far that wasn't affected in the slightest at his touch. That's both reassured and frightened him. Ophis, for some unknown reasons, felt comfortable when the orange-haired hybrid patted her head. This feels nice. Ophis spoke blankly, but a small yet sincere smile adored her face.
Ichigo smiled at this, finding a method in distracting the little girl from her ambitious goal as he ruffled her hair gently, earning a smile of content from the dragon in disguise. Soon, the two powerful being reached their destination, Yomiuri Land Station. After taking from some money from ATM, Ichigo and Ophis took a bus ride to a certain amusement park around here by Odakyu bus.
5 minutes later, they have reached their destination.
Yomiuriland is one of the larger and well-known Japanese amusement parks near Tokyo, first opened in 1964.
It is situated on hillsides, and features modern thrill rides such as roller coasters and water flumes. It is home to Yomiuri Giants Stadium, one of the training fields for the Yomiuri Giants baseball team, and was the primary training ground before Tokyo Dome was completed. It is operated and run by the Yomiuri Group, the parent of media conglomerate Yomiuri Shimbun. Recently, a bathhouse was constructed to attract more senior citizens. There were a teenaged hybrid with Reiatsu controlling issue and the genderless dragon in form of a little girl, standing in front of the amusement park's gate. The two were stuck out like a sore thumb. Peoples were staring at the peculiar couple, which annoyed the hell out of Ichigo.
Probably due their outfit, Ichigo, who still clad in his waiter uniform, and Ophis, who dressed in her trademark gothic Lolita outfit, which fortunately covered her front this time, probably due Ichigo endless demand before they took their train ride.
Why the hell I didn't get change before I got here? Ichigo wondered to no one in particular before he realized the sole reason. Oh right, I don't want to get amnesia from Fumika-san's wooden spoon. He muttered, causing the manifestation of his Shinigami hollow power laughed his ass off from within his inner world.
What is this place? Ophis asked in her small voice while staring at the set of buildings in front of her with a hint of interest.
Ichigo looked at her and smiled. Amusement park, a place to entertain people with various attractions such as rides and games. Ichigo answered shortly before motioned Ophis to follow him, which she complied.
He and Ophis then walked toward the ticket booth. Luckily, the line wasn't that long, so they don't have to wait to get their tickets.
After they bought their tickets, they entered the park and walked among the crowd. Ophis was looking around the park like a curious child. There were many kinds of lights and colors everywhere. She'd never seen anything like this before, not once in all of her countless years of living. Although she was still able to maintain her stoic face, he laughed a little at that. That stoic face of hers just made her even more adorable from before. Though, he won't admit it out loud. So, want to try some rides? Ichigo asked the girl out of blue after few minutes of silence, earning a surprised look from Ophis. Ophis have no idea what to say. She had never been here before, so she have no slightest idea what to try first. There were so many rides after all. That was until she heard a girlish scream from her right. She looked at the direction and found a ride which a specialized railroad system with steel drops and sharp curves. Ichigo looked at the ride before he looked back at the little girl beside him. You want to try a roller coaster? It was more a statement than a question. Ophis nodded her head stoically. He sighed in defeat and motioned Ophis to follow him.
They went up the line of people who would be riding the roller coaster next. Fortunately for them, the ride finally had stopped for the next round of people to ride. Though, Ichigo worried about the height regulation.
Surprisingly, Ophis barely passed the height regulation and now sitting beside him in the front car. Ichigo pushed down the metal bar to secure them in the car, and Ophis looked down at it curiously before she examined the tracks. They weren't as high or dangerous looking, so why does she hear those girls screaming before?
Suddenly, the car jolted and Ophis let out a squeak of surprise while everyone else cheered. The ride started to go up higher at slow pace, which confused Ophis greatly. "I don't understand," the little girl stated quietly out of blue, causing the hybrid to look at her.
Ichigo had a confused look on his face. "You said this place is a place to entertain people," Ophis stated as the car go up even higher, but still at slow pace. "Yes." The orange-haired teenager raised an eyebrow, still had no idea where this is going. Unbeknown to them, they had reached the top.
"Then why they are laughing? This, rides, doesn't feel like it entertained me, or them for that matter. So why are they Yhwach?" Ophis let out a long shriek of surprise when the coaster went fast down the drop. The Ouroboros dragon instinctively clutched onto the metal bar before her as if her life depended on it.
Our favorite hybrid laughed while watching Ophis's stoic demeanor was completely broken. As the ride went faster, she still clutched onto the metal bar tightly while having a rather frightened look on her face.
But soon, the Ouroboros dragon felt some foreign feeling.
A feeling that she have never felt before since the day she was born.
Joy. A very small, barely noticeable smile adored her adorable face. She let out an uncharacteristic girlish giggles that barely audible from normal ears.
However, Ichigo's ears weren't so normal compared to any other human, heard her giggles and looked down at the girl beside him and smiled a little at this.
"Woohoo!" Ichigo screamed out as he raised his arms. Seeing Ichigo did this, Ophis thought it wouldn't hurt if she did it too. With both of them raising their hands, they got ready for the last and steepest drop. "Ready?" he asked and she nodded.
When they have reached the last drop, Ophis couldn't help but let out a scream full of glee.
They soon came to a stop and the protective bars went up. Ichigo unclasped his buckle and without even asking, he unclasped his companions. That was entertaining, Ophis admitted as he loosed the buckle to make it easier to get off. Her voice was still barely audible, but there is a hint of joy in it.
And that was good enough for Ichigo. "Come on, let's take some another rides." 2 hours later, Ophis was sitting on a bench, with a dragon-stuffed toy in her lap. The bench was near a fountain that was surrounded by many kinds of colorful flower. She swung her legs playfully as she held a balloon in her grasp while watching Ichigo buying some ice cream for them.
The Ouroboros dragon was in deep thought. That peculiar creature that is Kurosaki Ichigo, was really being nice to her. He took her to this place, which she had to admit it's really a wonderful place. He introduced her to some rides such as carousel, bumper car, log flume, pirate ship, double shot, drop tower type ride, and Ferris wheel. That last one was her favorite alongside the roller coaster.
The thing is, she has no idea what his intention is. She hasn't done anything for him, and yet, the teenager took her off the dimension gap to see the world. She had encountered some supernatural beings that tried to impress her, but she knew they were doing that just because they want to exploit her immense power that could only be matched by Great Red and Trihexa. None of them were succeeded. But that peculiar creature, the one who called himself Kurosaki Ichigo, did a very good job in entertaining her. Ophis, in all her years of living, couldn't read the boy at all. He was an enigma to her. She had no idea his intention being nice to her, or if he even has any ulterior motive at all, considering his power, which could match her might outclassed even hers. But, sometime appearance could deceive you. So, she decided to find out what his intention is.
Ophis was snapped from her train of thought as Ichigo walked towards her with 2 cones of ice cream in his hands. "Here, try this." Ichigo handed Ophis the pink-colored ice cream, a strawberry-flavored one.
Ophis took the cone and staring at it for a moment. "What is this?" she asked confusedly. Ichigo looked at her with a small smile on his face. "It's an ice cream, have a taste." Ichigo replied as he ate his chocolate-flavored ice cream. Ophis stared at the action before mimicking him perfectly, well, almost perfectly, since there was some ice cream on her mouth. Though, this doesn't stop her to the dessert even more. It's a bit cold. But quite tasty. She commented monotonely while tasting the cold treat eagerly this time.
Ichigo could hear her slurping sounds and looked at the girl who suddenly stopped devouring her cold treat. The hybrid practically laughed his ass off when he looked at her face.
Ophis merely titled her head cutely, which made the orange-haired hybrid laugh even more. What's so funny? She asked innocently, clearly confused at her companion. Ichigo then wiped out some tears in his eye while still laughing a little. Your face looks funny, was that his response before he laughed again at her innocent to the point some people were looking at the odd couple, especially at Ichigo as if he has a mental disorder.
Ophis then rose up to her feet and leaned towards the fountain behind the bench and stared at her reflection on the water. She widened her gray eyes when she looked at her own face. Her face was a mess. There were some ice cream in her mouth, nose and her cheeks. Ichi was right, her face looks funny. She couldn't help but giggled at this before sat back on the bench. She then devoured the rest of the treat but leaving the cone still in one piece. She stared at it for a moment. Should I throw this away? Ophis asked the hybrid blankly while showing him the empty cone.
Ichigo, who was satisfied laughing, shook his head. Don't throw it away, it was meant to be eaten along with the ice cream. Ichigo replied, earning a confused look from Ophis which almost made him laugh again at her cuteness. Ophis then suddenly devoured the cone in one go and grimaced a little. It tastes plain, she noted duly as she chewed and swallowed the cone. Of course, it tastes plain. You have eaten all the ice cream. Ichigo replied drily as he handed her his ice cream. Here, have another. Ophis accepted the treat as she, again, devoured the whole thing in one go. This caused the hybrid sweat dropped a little as he watched the girl swallowed his treat. Ophis hummed, clearly pleased at the taste. It's delicious. She nodded her acceptance. Ichigo just smiled before he reached into his pocket and pulled out a piece of handkerchief and began wiped out some leftover ice cream from her face. After she let Ichigo cleaning her face, Ophis then remembered her plan and proceeded to ask the hybrid. Ichi, what's why? Ophis was about to ask his intention until she was interrupted when Ichigo roughly stood to his feet and looked at his watch. Oh, crap, it's almost 6 p.m. We should get going, he stated as he hastily pulled Ophis off her bench and ran towards the front gate. Unfortunately, Ichigo wasn't looking where he is going and bumped into someone carrying some groceries, causing the three of them crashed onto ground. Ichigo widened his eyes in horror at this. He killed someone, in the middle of crowd no less. He just bumped into someone when he's still unable to control his Reiatsu. He has done very well not touching anyone and to think he was stupid enough to be careless. And his carelessness today has cost someone's life. Hey, watch your going. Huh, yeah, huh, the person, a female to be exact, is still alive. She was buried underneath the groceries she was carrying earlier. This caused Ichigo wiped his head towards her direction, just in time to see her head popped out from the pile of groceries. The female was a young woman in her late teen. She has a pair of dark blue eyes and shoulder-length silver hair with a long braid on each side of her face along with green bows at the ends. She also wore a silver and dark blue French maid's outfit with long sleeves, and a white maid headband on her head. Ichigo was snapped out his thought when the woman snapped her finger right in front of his face. Hey, Earth to Dandelion. Do you copy? She then fed his forehead with her finger. Ouch. The orange-haired hybrid howled as he felt great amount of pain on his forehead. Why would you do that? He yelled at the silver-haired female, momentarily forgetting his earlier thought. The woman just looked at him with a raised eyebrow. Really, is that how you talk to someone you just bumped to? What a gentleman you are. The woman stated drily while tidying up her ruined groceries. Now Ichigo felt like he was a jerk. Sorry, he mumbled before helping her gather her groceries before helping her to stand. His suspicious was on the spot though when he took her hand and pulled her up off the ground. He frowned at this. King. Zangetsu called from within his inner world. I hear you, the fact she doesn't seems to be affected by my touch is a dead giveaway that she's not some ordinary maid. Ichigo stated within his mind while he let go off her hand. This girl just shrugged off a touch from him while a goddess like Amaterasu was still able to feel pain from it. Yeah, she definitely isn't an ordinary maid. After gathering her stuffs, the silver-haired woman turned around and began to walk away. HMMP. Next time, use your eyes when you're walking. She noted rather rudely before she blended into the crowd, leaving the dumbfounded Ichigo there.
Ichi. Ophis tugged the sleeve of his waiter uniform, gaining his attention. Are you alright? She asked him.
Ichigo just sighed tiredly and replied, I'm fine. Let's just get out of here. Ophis nodded before they exited the amusement park through the front gate.
They, however, failed to notice the silver-haired woman from before was watching them leave the park. So that's Kurosaki Ichigo, huh? He's truly a splendid being, just like Der Führer described of him. The maid mumbled to herself. A smile appeared on her beautiful face. We will meet again soon enough, Kurosaki Ichigo.
And with that, the maid also leave the amusement park. Wednesday, March 4, 1997, 5:52 a.m., DXD Universe, Earth, Europe, Spain, Madrid, La Moraleja. La Moraleja, beautiful plot of over 40,000 square meters in the best area of Madrid. These are 4 linked plots of around 10,000 square meters each, one populated by huge pines and centuries-old oaks. In the entrance of this urbanization, next to the best houses of the urbanization and with active security the 24 hours.
Probably La Moraleja is Spain's most well-known luxury residential development. Located in the north of Madrid, in the municipal term of Alcobendas, it has an extension of 950 hectares. It has 1050 independent houses on plots of 1,500, 2,500 and 10,000 square meters.
Both its privileged location, just 12 kilometers from the center of the capital and 5 kilometers from Barajas Airport, as well as its private security and its many schooling options, it is within walking distance of the Liceo Europeo College. Restaurants, shops, outdoor sports, gyms and health, makes La Moraleja one of the most exclusive areas not only in Madrid but in the whole country. The Spanish version of Beverly Hills, it is home to some of Spain's wealthiest people with sprawling mansions and several luxury golf courses such as La Moraleja Golf Club Madrid. One author describes it as a moneyed enclave of the rich and famous, including politicians, actors, top businessmen, with property prices which range from the merely extortionate to the outright laughable. People such as Rocio Jurado, Isabel Pantoja, Jose Antonio Camacho, Lola Flores, Ava Gardner, David Beckham, Bing Crosby, Fernando Alonso, Ana Obregon, Belinda Peregrine Skull, and Donny Pedrosa live or have lived in La Moraleja. Aside from its golf courses, La Moraleja also contains some of Spain's elite private schools and sports clubs. A limousine entered the front gate of the biggest mansion in the site and drove past through a garden of many beautiful flowers before stopped before the front door. The driver immediately exited the limo and hastily reached the back seat and opened the door for his 2 lone passengers. A man with stylish brown hair in his business suit stepped out from the car, followed by a very beautiful woman with ponytail purple hair in a very beautiful purple dress. The driver bowed his head respectfully before he entered the driver's seat and drove the limo into the garage. The couple then heard the door was being opened by someone who, as they predicted, always greeted them when they were home. That someone was a beautiful woman in her early 20s with elegant silver hair and matching eyes. She has a very curvaceous figure, and her hair, which flows all the way down to her back, features a long braid on each side with small blue bows at the ends, while the rest is let down, ending in twin braids. She dressed in a blue-white French maid outfit with long sleeves and a white maid headband over her head, with red lipstick as a cosmetic accessory. Okarina Saimes, Goshujin Sama, Oju Sama. The maid greeted her master respectfully while bowed her head slightly. It's good to be back, Grafia. The man, who is none other than the chairman of Real Madrid FC, replied as he and his female companion entered the big house. Grafia Lucifuge comes from the house of Lucifuge, a noble family of pure-blooded devils from the extra demons whose family served under the original Lucifer. Grafia was originally from the old Mao faction that opposed the anti-Satan faction, where she stood in the front lines as one of the most powerful devils. And how such a powerful creature could end up working as a maid for the chairman of a certain football club is another story for next time. As soon as the two were inside, Grafia closed the massive double door before followed her masters obediently. Has the things with our business partners gone well while we were gone, Grafia? The chairman spoke as he slowly removed his tux while the 3 climbed up the stairs.
Yes, the son of Morningstar held the end of the bargain and has provided us with the stuffs we need for our next plan. Graphia reported as she took the tux and hanged it in her hand. Has he and his underling planned something ridiculously funny against us? The purple-haired woman finally spoke after she had been silent for a while.
So far, his hands were clean. The maid answered before continued. But one of his subordinates is planning to hit on a conference between Shinto faction and Devil faction that will be held in Kyoto in 3 weeks. This caused both of her masters chuckled a little. Hee. They react just as you've predicted, Anata. After gaining some minor power up, they become arrogant enough to think they could take on Shinto Trinity and 2 super devils that are likely gonna attend the conference. The woman remarked as the 3 walked through a long corridor on the 2nd floor. The chairman nodded his head in agreement, clearly he was pleased at the news. The old Mao faction has been nothing but a hindrance to my agenda. Giving them some power up has always been part of my plan to eliminate them one by one without having the son of Morningstar blaming me for his subordinates' incompetence. He stated before he smiled cryptically.
Not to mention, it was you who gave them an input to try and kidnap Yasakaheim during Yukai Festival in Kyoto, in order for the conference between Shinto and Devil to occur. The purple-haired woman noted with great admiration in her voice. She was really impressed by the chairman's cunning plan to eliminate their business partner without being suspicious.
Graphia then walked ahead her master when they reached a double door and opened it for them to enter before closing it and head back to downstairs.
Now the chairman and the purple-haired woman were alone in the chairman's study room. He sat on a very comfortable chair and leaned back on the chair while the woman wrapped her arms around him while smiled sensually.
Now Iza, tell me what you find while you infiltrated Kremlin. The chairman ordered with rather serious tone.
The purple-haired woman, Iza, her smile vanished as she answered his question. Nothing earth-shaking, but I can tell the Quincy Ryotsu is practically everywhere within that building. Iza spoke as she started massaging his shoulder. The chairman nodded at that as he reached to a cup of tea, that probably had been prepared for him by Graphia, and took a sip. That alone is enough proof to confirm that Yhwach is planning something big in Russia, he stated as he put down the cup back on the table.
Iza stopped massaging before she sat on the table and leaned forward to his face. So, what are you gonna do about it? Are you finally gonna make your move on him? The purple-haired woman inquired and gave him a curious look.
The chairman knew that look in nearly a millennium he know her.
It was a look of a curious woman. A look which so eager to find out what his next move is. He countlessly had satisfied that look with his brilliant mind, cunning plans and his always accurate predictions. It was one of the reasons why she was so attracted and willingly to follow this man, beside the favor he generously has done to her, which is another story for next time.
To her disappointment, the chairman shook his head. No, I'm sure Yhwach wouldn't mind waiting for another couple of decades. He has been in this world even longer than I am. The chairman replied, causing Iza puffed her cheek as she pouted at him. Let's just focusing on eliminating the old Mao faction and keeping the son of Morningstar in his place.
The chairman then took a sip of his tea again and smiled smoothly while staring at Iza in her almost soulless eyes, effectively causing her to blush madly. He smirked at her reaction. Beside, I think it is time for me to keep tabs on my greatest masterpiece. He stated cryptically, but Iza caught on what he meant. You're going to alert your presence to Kurosaki Ichigo, aren't you? It was more a statement than a question. And he knew it, so he didn't bother to answer. Is he really that good? I mean, despite not often making public appearance, you're one of the most influential men on earth. And the fact he still hadn't found is beyond me. Intellectually, I outclassed him by huge margin. The chairman admitted himself as he rested his head onto his hand. But like I always say, Iza, his greatest trait is his advanced growth rate, which outstripped my own by huge margin. Give him 1 or 2 decades and he will be my equal or even possibly surpassed me again. The purple-haired woman could only just silent at her companion explanation. He had always talked about the boy so highly and she was really curious of the boy who managed to be a threat comparable to Yhwach.
Then she smirked as an idea just popped out in her mind.
Do you mind if I fly to Japan and observe him personally? She requested hopefully. The chairman stared at her for a few moments before he sighed in defeat. Very well, as long as you hides your true nature and keep your celebrity persona, you're permitted to fly to Japan. The chairman replied, causing the purple-haired woman beamed into smile.
Thank you, Anada. Iza thanked the chairman and gave him a quick kiss on the lips. While I'm canceling all of my concerts and arranging one in Tokyo, would you mind book me a ticket for tonight? She asked as she pulled out a cell phone from her dress.
The chairman sighed again at her demands. Just make sure Kurosaki Ichigo doesn't find out about your true color. The chairman stated seriously as the purple-haired woman started to leave his study room. Iza just smiled brightly at him while opened the door. Don't worry, Anada, Ichigo-kun won't suspect a thing from me, she replied as she stepped out from the room before closed the door, leaving the chairman alone in his study room.
He stared at the door for a few moments before he shook his head.
Women, why did I let her to do as she pleased to me in the first place anyway? He wondered out loud as he took off his fedora hat and placed it on the table. He then smiled while recalled the first time he met her within a certain land of the dead.
Because she's the only person who can truly understands me. He then pulled out his own cell phone from his pocket and dialed a number.
Not even the loyal Konami shared the same interest and vision like me. The man murmured solemnly, remembering his previous subordinates as he placed his cell phone to his ear while waiting for the next line. Good morning. This is Emirates Airlines' call center. How can I help you? A female customer service politely asked from the next line.
Yes, my acquaintance is planning on having a flight to Tokyo tonight. I would like to book a ticket for her. Can you do that? The chairman replied smoothly. Sure. We have a plane to Tokyo at 9 p.m. May I have your name, sir? The customer service asked again.
The chairman of Real Madrid Football Club smiled mysteriously before answered. Sosuke Aizen, the nucleus of the universe, the center where all phenomena emanated from the existing law.
Of course that is not the place where one can reach by walking or flying. It was a metaphysical, some sort of hyperdimensional space, that beyond dimensional structure that cannot be described by any language in existence. It was located at the highest layer of existence, where the very concept of time itself doesn't exist in any manner. The throne was the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, everything and nothing. It was what precedes duality.
This hyperdimensional space was not really well known, one that can be considered as the fairy tale among fairy tale, for every living and the dead in existence. Not even the two known, ultimate being, neither the Ouroboros dragon Ophis, nor the dragon of dragons great red nose, nor that they can reach it. Please, we don't have to do this. This, however, doesn't guarantee that this hyperdimensional space that is the throne was inhabitable. Floating on an endless space inside of the throne, a very desperate brown-haired girl begged to two figures before her while tears falling down her face like a waterfall. One was a majestic-looking woman with purple hair, and the other was an undeniable elegant woman with shining golden hair. The majestic purple woman let out a small, yet melancholic smile on her face. Apologize, my censored, but the curtain has already been drawn. The audiences are currently waiting for the pinnacle of this drama. There is no turning back. Please, do forgive this selfish action of mine, she spoke smoothly, although there is a hint of anguish in her voice. The desperate brown girl still couldn't stop her tears as she diverted her attention to the elegant golden woman. Please, the desperate brown girl begged with all her might, hoping her humble tone might weigh the woman. The elegant golden woman stared at her for a moment before waved her left hand to her side. Sequere naturam. The elegant golden woman unleashed a powerful supernova that consisted of thousands upon thousands of stars condensed into a single blast that can atomize anything in its wake. The blast was powerful enough to infinitely destroy and create infinity number of multiverses that exist, already existed, will exist and don't even exist, in one go. Although such claim couldn't be applied to the two other females. The majestic purple woman just casually countered the attack by swiping her weapon, which happened to be an equally majestic-looking golden spear that constantly releasing a rather extreme dance of cosmic energy that could make the lesser beings lost their minds. The desperate brown girl, however, have a little trouble in protecting herself with her quite dangerous-looking black katana since she was a nanosecond too late to react. Having trouble she does, but still relatively unharmed. The majestic purple woman let out a laugh, an elegant laugh that shouldn't be audible within this endless space at the highest layer of existence. Interesting, not even in my wildest dream would I dare to think that you would raise your hand towards her. I thought she is your censored.
The majestic purple woman remarked with a confused look on her face. A confused expression tends to ruin someone's beauty, but such thought couldn't be really applied to her. The elegant golden woman just glared at the majestic purple woman with a hateful glare. Yeah, it's thanks to you that I just broke my oath to her again. If only you can just stay still and let us erase you from this world. She doesn't even bother to hid her resentment towards the majestic purple woman. Who found something the elegant golden woman had said was quite funny to the point she doesn't even bother to suppress her chuckles.
Dodge or defend oneself when being attacked. Isn't that what every beings, including nigh omnipotent being like us, would do?
A small, barely noticeable grin adored the majestic purple woman's beautiful face.
This caused the elegant golden woman frowned before she summoned a half-dozen of gargantuan white snake and sending them towards the majestic purple woman, who had created a gigantic fireball many times bigger than sun. But before both attack collided with each other, both of the attacks were obliterated by a massive black wave of cosmic energy. Both of them, well, weren't really surprised by this. They just looked to their sides to see the desperate brown girl was holding her pure black katana in front of her while trembling all the while, still couldn't stop her tears that was still falling down from her desperate gray eyes. Please. There has to be another way to solve this problem. The majestic and the elegant softened their gaze at the desperate's plea. Sorrow, anguish, pain were clearly visible in their eyes as they really hate to see their censored like this. We are really sorry, censored. But this one thing is the only thing we cannot afford to just give it up. As we desire it. The majestic spoke solemnly, earning a nod of agreement from the elegant. I just want to die. One specific death, absolutely any other end than that, is unacceptable, the elegant said. I just want to see the unknown. The majestic followed. And I just want to enjoy our moment of happiness for eternity. The desperate finally letting out all of her emotion that she managed to suppress up until now. All creation can burn down to ashes for all I care. I don't want any of you to die. I don't want any of you to fight each other. I don't want any of you to leave me alone. I just want you to be with me for eternity. The desperate finally collapsed to her knee and cried her heart out in pure anguish. She hugged her black katana tightly while still trembling all the while. This scene, strangely, caused the majestic and the elegant to smile sincerely. See. You have your own selfish desire too. This statement from the elegant caused the desperate to look up at the two other nigh omnipotent beings in surprise. The fact you would be fine if any other creations were burned down to ashes, and the fact you're disregarding our own desires are the proof that you're just as selfish as we are. The elegant continued, earning a realization look from the desperate. The desperate really never thought of that. She's never really thought of what the two most important person before her would think about her own desire. And to think she thought that she was the purest of the three. What an arrogant being she is. But it won't be matter. While I don't mind dying by your hands, I cannot let myself get killed again, so the two of you are gonna die here and now. The majestic declared as she flared her immeasurable cosmic power in form of purple light which shook the entire existence. This action got a reaction from the elegant and the desperate by flaring their own respective cosmic power. The elegant was covered with shining golden light while the desperate was coated in pitch black aura with blue outline. If a full-powered aura from just one night omnipotent being was more than enough to make the entire existence trembled in its wake, then 3 full-powered aura were more than enough to collapse it. It was proven when the hyperdimension space around them began to collapse itself. Every single universes that exist, already existed and will exist, and don't even exist, were falling apart, cannot withstand the gargantuan power from the 3 godlike beings. Then, the majestic, the desperate and the elegant, unleashed their final attacks. That sealed the fate of entire existences and non-existences. Du sollst. Dies irae. Res novi. Also sprach Zarathustra. Acta est fabula. The moment those words were announced, such thing like existence and non-existence were supposedly no more. But due the nature of one of those, attack, the everything in existence and non-existence, resetting themselves instead. Wednesday, March 25, 1997, 11:14 a.m., DXD Universe, Earth, North America, USA, Washington, D.C. A young-looking woman with twin pigtails blonde hair, grumpily awakened from her slumber as she revealed her pair of red eyes to the world. The young-looking woman was dressed in black German military uniform along with a red armband, which has the symbol of an eagle atop of swastika on it, around her left bicep.
She blinked a few times before her eyes traveled around her surrounding. She was sitting inside of a limousine. Her car was guarded by two other black cars from front and behind.
She finally let out a tired sigh as she leaned back to her seat comfortably. That memories again, huh? Just how many years has it been since the first time I reset everything? The woman muttered to herself as she reached for a glass and a bottle of wine that laid on the small table beside her seat and poured the content into the glass. I think I lost count at Argentilian. The woman murmured as she took a sip of her wine while tried to recall her memories of her earlier life, which kind of fuzzy, and decided to give up. This woman was none other than the elegant, one of the nigh omnipotent being who fought both the majestic and the desperate at the highest layer of existence for her desire. The battle was, well, ended in draw, again. The fact she had reset everything is a proof that she, and the other two, had died, probably because the clash of their ultimate attack, at the pinnacle of their battle. The nature of her attack, acta est fabula, was when it was activated at the time of her death. The elegant will reset everything in existence if it does not end how she wants it to end, even in realms where time was non-existent, such as the throne where her endless battle with her equals take place. While everything was resetting, the elegant was able to change the next timeline in whatever way she likes. Albeit sometimes, the butterfly effect that her changes produce was beyond of her control.
Such the case of her recent reset. Of all the side effect that could have happened, her wasn't being born yet is the one that irritated me the most. The last time this happened, it took me 10 million of years before I can finally meet her again. The elegant doesn't even bother to hide her frustration before she regain her composure.
Oh well, not that really matter. While I can just jump to the future where she will be born, it's kind of more entertaining to wait rather than skipping it. The elegant then noticed the limousine she is in was entering the front gate of a rather well-known building in this country, and the world as well. The White House, the official residence and workplace of the President of the United States of America, located at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue NW in Washington, D.C. It has been the residence of every U.S. president since John Adams in 1800. The north front is the principal facade of the White House and consists of 3 floors and 11 bays.
The ground floor is hidden by a raised carriage ramp and parapet, thus the facade appears to be of 2 floors. The central 3 bays are behind a pro-style portico. This was a later addition to the house, built circa 1830, serving, thanks to the carriage ramp, as a porte-cochere. The windows of the 4 bays flanking the portico, at first floor level, have alternating pointed and segmented pediments, while at second floor level the pediments are flat. The principal entrance at the center of the portico is surmounted by a lunette fanlight. Above the entrance is a sculpted floral festoon. The roofline is hidden by a balustraded parapet. The mansion's southern facade is a combination of the Palladian and neoclassical styles of architecture.
It is of 3 floors, all visible. The ground floor is rusticated in the Palladian fashion. At the center of the facade is a neoclassical projecting bow of 3 bays. The bow is flanked by 5 bays, the windows of which, as on the north facade, have alternating segmented and pointed pediments at first floor level. The bow has a ground floor double staircase leading to an Ionic colonnaded loggia, with the Truman balcony at second floor level, known as the south portico. The more modern third floor is hidden by a balustraded parapet and plays no part in the composition of the facade. At the main of the entrance, the elegant could clearly see a horde of reporters swarmed to the mansion, probably waiting for her arrival. And when they have their eyes on her limo, they prepared their equipments, which consisted of mic, camera and their ID card. The car finally stopped right in front of the main entrance. The reporters attempted to crowd the limo and tried to interview the woman in military uniform. This attempt, however, was stopped by a great numbers of men dressed in black, as they roughly prevented the reporters to be within 10 meters from the car.
One of the men in black marched towards the passenger seat and opened the door, allowing the elegant stepped out the car. This, however, only made the hordes of reporters gone even crazier as they somehow managed to break through the barricade. General Testarossa, please answer our question. Would you like to tell us about your visit to the White House?
We have heard from our source that you will discuss about some military project with President Valentine. Is that the truth?
Is it true that President Heydrich has passed away? Is that the reason of his absence today? As the Supreme General of Nazi Germany, does this mean you're gonna be the next president? Miss Fate, is it true that you have some affair with President Heydrich? The blonde, young woman inwardly laughed at the last question while smiled at the identity she had choose for this time, especially at the name she had choose.
Fate Testarossa. In public, she was the Supreme General of Nazi Germany, the name of Germany's main military power. She was, in term of rank, the second most powerful person in Germany, second only to President Heydrich. She was also the most powerful woman in the world, according to many famous magazines such as Forbes, Time and etc. But truthfully, she was one of three, nigh omnipotent, beings called censored, who had lived through countless years and timeline, and died in the process before resetting everything over and over again for eternity. In each reset, created an entirely new identity for her. She has so many aliases than she could remember, not that it really matter. But this reset was somehow different. The fact she chose to be her previous self as a military woman, the fact she chose to use her original name, Fate Testarossa. Being nigh omniscience that she was, everything in the history of this existence, and significant amount of variations, were nothing but part of her plan, as she has reset it countless times and knows all the possible variations of its history, albeit she possesses several blind spots regarding them. But for some unknown reason, she had this urge to use her true name for this reset. She likes guessing the unknown, as most of them were really entertaining. She knew that the majestic and the desperate will go by another names as always. But she also got this feeling that something might upset her really bad. It's as if I'm just a fictional characters that the author really likes to mess around. She muttered inside of her head, completely oblivious of the indescribable, as currently watching and laughing at her unintentional fourth wall breaking from the boundless realm of omnipotent. Fate just laughed lightheartedly as she addressed the reporter who asked that last question. Who knows? Maybe we do have some affair or maybe we don't. It is just up to your imagination really. I don't really mind. And with that rather vague answer, the Supreme General of Nazi Germany walked through the crowd of reporters, ignoring their requests for more detailed answer, and walked into the White House. Wednesday, March 25, 1997, 4:32 p.m., DXD Universe, Earth, Asia, Japan, Kyoto. This place is surely as crowded as I remember. Kurosaki Ichigo, a human Shinigami hollow Quincy hybrid, was floating above the afternoon sky while staring down at the capital of Kyoto. The city was even more crowded than usual, makes sense though since there was a monthly festival today. Ichigo would be more than eager to join those people below him, but he is currently being a temporary, secret service, for Amaterasu. Not to mention, he doesn't want to risk killing those people if one of them was unfortunate enough to accidentally touch him. Oh well, time to get back to work. With a nonchalant shrug, the orange-haired hybrid vanished through a burst of shunpo. Not even 10 seconds later, Ichigo appeared right in front of a certain building that was so well known throughout Japan. Kinkaku-ji, officially named as Rokuan-ji, was a Zen Buddhist temple in Kyoto, Japan. It is one of the most popular buildings in Japan, attracting a large number of visitors annually. It was designated as a National Special Historic Site and a National Special Landscape, and it is one of 17 locations making up the historic monuments of ancient Kyoto which are World Heritage Sites. Kinkaku-ji was a 3-story building on the grounds of the Rokuan-ji Temple complex. The top 2 stories of the pavilion were covered with pure gold leaf. The pavilion functions as a Sheraton, housing relics of the Buddha. The building was an important model for Ginkaku-ji and Shokoku-ji, which were also located in Kyoto. When these buildings were constructed, Ashikaga Yoshimasa employed the styles used at Kinkaku-ji and even borrowed the names of its 2nd and 3rd floors. Ichigo then walked towards the main entrance, which was guarded by 2 Karasu Tengu who are both taller than him. The Tengu guards recognized him instantly, probably due to his standout hair color, and were kind enough to open the massive door for him. Although Ichigo spotted a slight troubled look on their face, which Zangetsu found it quite funny. Biwahahaha. Look at those bird faces. They are jealous that their boss lady seems to give you special treatment. The manifestation of his Zanpakuto laughed maniacally from within his inner world. While Ichigo didn't respond on his Zanpakuto's remark, the hybrid could totally agreed with him.
If those creatures have something against him, they could have said it to his face instead rather than pretend to be nice to him. Focus, Ichigo. Remember why you're here. The wise Tensa Zangetsu spoke in fatherly manner. Ichigo just nodded inwardly as walked into the temple.
Inside the spacious temple, there was located a quite huge round table with total 5 highly ornate seats that were already occupied by 5 powerful beings. On the left side of a table, there was an elegant-looking young man with shoulder-length black hair dressed in ceremonial robe.
Sitting right next to him was a tall and very beautiful woman with long black hair and black eyes, dressed in a very beautiful kimono. On her left was a rugged-looking old man with some facial hair and unruly black hair while dressed in highly ornate kimono. He was rather short, probably due his body was slightly slouching.
The people of the left side of the table was none other than the infamous Shinto Trinity. The young man was the Shinto god of moon, Tsukuyomi no Mikoto. Tsukuyomi was born when Izanagi no Mikoto was cleaning himself of his sins while bathing after his escape from Yomi in the clutches of the enraged Izanami no Mikoto. Tsukuyomi was born out of Izanagi's right eye. The slouching rugged old man was the infamous slayer of Yamato no Orochi, as well as the Shinto god of sea and storms, Takaya Suzano no Mikoto. He was the third of the 3 noble children, who was born from Izanagi. Suzano was born from his nose. The beautiful woman in the middle of Tsukuyomi and Suzano was none other than the Shinto goddess of sun as well as the official leader of Shinto faction, Amaterasu Omikami. She was the first children that was born from Izanagi's left eye and therefore making her as the oldest of the 3.
All 3 of them are ranked as the top 10 strongest being in the world, and thus making Shinto faction as one of the strongest faction out there.
Ichigo walked towards one of the pillar in the room and leaned to it while turning his attention to the right side of the table. There were 2 people sitting on the right side of the table. The first one was a handsome and young man, having the appearance of a man in his early 20s with shoulder-length crimson-red hair and blue-green eyes. He was wearing some sort of ceremonial robe with armor. The second one was a beautiful girl looking in her late teens with black hair, tied into twin tails and a pair of violet eyes. She also has a childlike body, albeit with large S, that was hugged perfectly by the formal uniform she wore.
The 2 person on the right were none other than Sirzek Lucifer and Seraphal Leviathan. They were 2 of 4 current Mao whose power were also ranked among top 10 strongest being in the world.
Currently, the Mao Leviathan was having a rather heated argument with the leader of Shinto faction.
With all due respect, Amaterasu Dono, it wasn't me who ordered the kidnapping attempt on Yusakaheim. The female devil spoke for the 3rd times in the span an hour. Her tone may sound calm, but Ichigo could clearly detect a hint of frustration within her voice, though he could feel that she's being honest.
My apologize, Seraphal Dono. But I found your story was quite outrageous. Our princess stated herself that she heard one of the devils mentioned your name as the one behind the attempt. Amaterasu spoke in her smooth tone, signifying her authority as the leader of Shinto faction.
Ichigo narrowed his eyes at this. It's true that one of those devils was mentioned the name of Leviathan back then. But from what the impression he got from the female devil, it's unlikely that she was the one behind that kidnapping attempt. The crimson-haired man decided to back his fellow devil up. We're always monitoring any of our kinds who are active on duty outside of the underworld. And during the incident, none of them were neither leaving their post nor were near Kyoto at time, as you can see in our report we have provided you. The current Lucifer spoke in calm manner, but inside he was just as stressful as Seraphal. The orange-haired hybrid raised his eyebrow in interest at this. If what this man, Sirzek, was true, that he has some of his men in Japan, then he should be more careful in near future. He also worried if this man had have his men to spy on him without him noticed. And apparently, this man was an acquaintance to Azazel, who he heard from the rumor, have many connection around the world. The Shinto god of sea and storms, Suzano, picked up the pile of paper in front of him and waved it with his hand. This report could be fake. Even the dumbest mortal human in existence could twist words into a very believable story. The Shinto god stated rather rudely as he slammed the papers back onto the table.
Ichigo inwardly snorted at the blunt reply, though he felt insulted slightly at Suzano's kind of racist comment. As freak as he was, Ichigo was still part human. Heck, even he learned that even a hollow, which he originally though was just a mindless, soul-devouring creature, could evolve into Vasto Lord and could match to that of a Shinigami captain. The two Mao narrowed their eyes at the rugged-looking god, feel mildly insulted as the Shinto god compared them to a mere mortal, the dumbest one no less. But fortunately, the Shinto god of moon, Tsukuyomi, interjected. Forgive my Annie's disrespect act, but what he said does have a point though. It's not like we just disregarding your act of defense, but we need something to guarantee our subordinates that what you said in the report is indeed the truth. The second children of Izanagi spoke in proper manner, unlike his brother blunt demeanor.
Ichigo could see the point in Tsukuyomi's statement. Some ignorant and racist subordinate would still think that it was just some devil ruse to buy time before as they gathered enough power to go on war against them.
Wasn't the words from the faction leader should be enough to convince them? Are we the least trustworthy faction to you? Seraphal inquired. This time she doesn't even bother to hide her frustration.
Ichigo just laughed inwardly at her frustration. Her childlike body just made her even more adorable, similar to Ophis' confused face. Though he won't in millions of years would admit it out loud. Bam! The Shinto god of sea and storm slammed his hand in rage as he addressed Seraphal, who for Ichigo's credit, didn't even flinch a little bit. We lost of one of our 5 great family, because some of your kind. They tricked them, reincarnated them into devils without their consents and mercilessly murdered them when they refused to become their servants, not before raping the female clan members. It's only natural for our people to think that devils cannot be trusted. Susanoo yelled at the female devil in pure rage, causing the two leader of the devils adopted a troubled look on their face. Ichigo narrowed his eyes at this. He had heard the rumor about one Japan great clan was perished by devils. Ichigo had no idea which clan was it, but it became the very sole reason why Shinto seems to dislike devils so much.
Ani, please refrain yourself. Amaterasu spoke smoothly, but there is a hidden threat beneath her tone which the Shinto god barely could detect and complied as he sat back to his seat. The goddess of sun pleased at this before she addressed two of her guests, with a rather serious expression. Please understand Maudono, it took a lot of us to convince our people to not declare war on Underworld, and even after you executed the culprits personally, they still hold a grudge against your kinds.
Ichigo could understand a little about her point of view, but this issue also convinced him not to join any faction. If he remains neutral, he can practically do anything without being bounded by some political rules.
The crimson-haired devil could only rub his forehead at this. Seraphal, despite having many hundred of years of political debate, surprisingly just made a blunder by providing the Shinto opportunity to bring up their past mistake. The incident was agreed to keep on secret as per agreement with Shinto faction, but this current incident just give them the opportunity to use their dark secret as blackmail materials.
If the other faction found out about that incident, then it would be next to impossible to form an alliance with any other factions in the world without fearing an incident like that will ever happen to them. He was also aware that if Shinto declared war against Devil, any other factions wouldn't hesitate to join them in chance of eliminating 4 super devils from the game at once. Not to mention, more than half of the 72 pillars were already gone. Even a super devil like Sirzek Lucifer knew when he was outmatched in political talk. The odds are ridiculously against him. There is no way he would win this without triggering the Great War, which probably resulting the extinction of his kinds.
So, Sirzek Lucifer swallowed his pride and accepted the defeat.
Is there anything we can offer you to prevent war? With the current Lucifer asked that question, the goddess of sun let out a small, victorious smile, which didn't go unnoticed by Ichigo.
And I thought Devil was the S1, gotta be more careful around her. Ichigo noted within his mind, earning a nod of agreement from both Zangetsu. An hour later, the conference was finally done. Both factions agreed to keep their peace treaty intact, though this come out without a price, which is a loss to Devil's faction. Devils have to cease every one of their military activities within Japan and their waters, and all the devil that wish to enter Japan require authorization from the head of Shinto Foreign Affairs Department, which happened to be the Shinto god of moon himself. Also, any high-ranking devils who happen resided in Japan and gain a new member of their peerage must report immediately to Tsukuyomi. When Sirzek and Seraphal begrudgingly finished signing what Ichigo thought as some sort of magical peace treaty, they confronted the Shinto Trinity led by Amaterasu. So, that will be it. Amaterasu regarded her guests politely. It appeared that the conference had come to an end, much to Ichigo's relief.
Yes, let's just hope something like this will never happen again, Sirzek said as he extended her right arm for the goddess to take, which she do. Yes, Shinto, while as well known as the second most powerful faction, we do really dislike unnecessary bloodshed. The black-haired beauty shook her hand before letting go. Sirzek May smiled on the outside, but inwardly, he was frowning at the goddess emphasized the words, second most powerful faction, although this couldn't be said to Serafal, who openly frowned the whole time. Sirzek noticed Serafal's mood and was about to leave before he remembered something.
Before we return to Underworld, do you mind if I'd like to confirm something? The Crimson Lucifer politely asked the Shinto goddess, who nodded her head after a moment.
Sirzek smiled at this as he turned his attention towards Ichigo, who was still leaning onto a pillar inside the conference room. This gained some various reaction from everyone in the room.
The Tsukuyomi and Susanoo merely raised an eyebrow at this. They didn't know about Ichigo really well, but from what their elder sister told them, which she talked so highly about him, the boy was managed to hurt her by merely giving her a handshake. That was enough for them to have even the slightest interest and fear towards the boy. Serafal was having the similar reaction as the Shinto gods, but hers was also filled with worry since her demonic instinct screamed at her in fear that this boy was really, really dangerous. Amaterasu, however, was alarmed at this. Ichigo was a wild card to her. She intends to have him joining her side no matter what. But she would be foolish if she thinks that she was the only one who was interested in the young man too. She couldn't afford him to side with any other factions other than hers, especially with the devils. Ichigo himself was, well, he wasn't really surprised at all. In fact, he was expecting it. Though this doesn't mean he will let his guard down.
Sirzek confronted the young hybrid with a smile. Greetings, young man. The current Lucifer greeted the hybrid politely. Yes. What can I do for you? The hybrid asked the currently Lucifer casually. Sirzek was smiling even more. This boy wasn't one for formalities. That's a relief, but that doesn't mean things would be easier either. His guard was up all the time, even during the conference. I wonder if you could answer some questions for me. Sirzek politely spoke, carefully choosing his words. Ichigo stared at the crimson-haired man for a moment, having some inner conversation with both Zangetsu before came with a conclusion. I don't see why not, as long as you avoid to ask about whether or not my hair color is natural or dyed, then be my guest. Ichigo answered with a nonchalant shrug, earning a confused face from the Shinto Trinity and a giggles from Serafal, who began to like him. Sirzek gave Ichigo a reassuring smile. I promise it will be nothing personal. Then suddenly, his smile dropped into a serious face of Sirzek Lucifer, a veteran of the Great War. Are you indeed Kurosaki Ichigo? Yes, I am. The hybrid in question answered without missing a beat. What faction did you affiliated with? Ichigo blinked his eyes for a moment, clearly wasn't expecting such a question. Normally, people would ask him about what he really is, which he always replied with vague answer. I'm neutral. I don't affiliate with any factions. Sirzek nodded his head at this, seemingly pleased at the answer.
If so, then why are you here, in the middle of a conference between two factions? The Crimson Lucifer gave the hybrid a fierce stare that would make most supernatural creatures shit their pants on.
Unfortunately for him, Kurosaki Ichigo was no normal supernatural creature, so he just shrugged off his stare and answer. The fine lady over there hired me to become her secret service 3 weeks ago. The orange-haired hybrid gestured his hand towards Amaterasu, who, for lack of better words, was having a deadpanned look on her face as she stared at Ichigo with a raised eyebrow.
Did he just flirted at me? The Shinto goddess of sun wondered within her mind. Ichigo felt a sudden of realization struck at him as she addressed the goddess. Which reminds me, my payments better be delivered soon without any delay, or my services will no longer available for you. Ichigo just basically threatened the Shinto goddess, which gained various reaction from the other who were watching.
Tsukuyomi and Susanoo narrowed there. The boy has the gall to make such demand to a deity. If not for Amaterasu told them to not antagonize him beforehand, they, or at least Susanoo, would pulled out his Tatsuka no Tsurugi and shoved it to the boy's throat. Amaterasu just sighed, knowing that getting on Ichigo's bad side would be a very serious problem. Not to mention he must have noticed her earlier stunt, so getting him to her side would be much harder now.
I guarantee you Ichigo-kun, I'll deliver your payments, personally. The goddess spoke with her neutral tone, but she doesn't even attempt to hide her frustration.
The devils, on other hand, were really interested in this. This boy just demanded something to one of the most powerful deity in the world and had been complied by the said deity so easily. Kurosaki Ichigo, what an interesting person you are. The current Leviathan thought with a sly smile on her face as she stared at the orange-haired hybrid. The teenager nodded as he turned around. Well, seems my job is done here. See you around, Amat. Just when he was about to leave, Ichigo stopped immediately when he felt something. He adopted a serious expression because of this. King Zangetsu began, but Ichigo interrupted him. I know, something's with demonic power and Ryotsu are coming, he replied as he looked at the direction where he felt the power from. Boom! The sound of explosion was heard from outside, rocking the room and shocking everyone out of their stupor.
What the? Boom! Another explosion was heard, and it's even bigger than the last one, the explosion even generating a powerful shockwave that could have blown away the building they were in. Bam! The massive double door suddenly being kicked open, everyone turned towards the direction to see two Karasu Tengu rushed in the building.
Amaterasu-sama, we're under attack, the Tengu guards exclaimed.
The Shinto goddess of sun, as well as the other leaders, were shocked at this but quickly regained her composure. Send out our current troops and call for reinforcement from the capital now. The Shinto goddess commanded the Tengu, who bowed obediently before they rushed out the temple.
The beauty rubbed her forehead dizzily while speaking. It seems your job is not over yet, Ichigo-kun. Why don't you go out there and... Just when she was about to face him, Amaterasu found out that the hybrid wasn't in the building anymore. This shocked not just her, but the other leaders as well. Wait a minute. Where did he go? The Shinto god of sea and storm yelled with no small surprise. The others looked around to find an orange head, but only Tsukuyomi who found him, well, since he's the only one who looked outside. Anya, you might want to see this. The Shinto god of moon spoke with an unreadable expression on his face as he looked out from the window. The others moved to the window to see what causing the ruckus out there. Shock was not a strong enough word to describe their reaction when they saw the chaos outside, or rather the culprits behind it. Black creature. Check. Bat wings. Check. Tails. Check. Fur is weapon. Check. It's official, the conference were attacked by a group, no, an army of devils. Fortunately, Ichigo was already there and began to decimate. Wait, decimate would be a very big understatement. He practically slaughtered them. With his bare hands. Things seems to be under control, thanks to quick action from Ichigo. But while he's doing what he paid for, the Shinto Trinity gave the devils a various looks. A rage one from Susanoo, a deadpan one from Amaterasu, and an unreadable one from Tsukuyomi. All of them, however, clearly written over their face that they demand explanation. Searzek Lucifer raised his hands in defense. I assure you, Amaterasu Dono, we have no hand in this. The Lucifer tried to explain while inwardly cursed at whoever ordered the attack. Bullshit. Like we would fall for that. I know from the start that they couldn't be trusted, Inui. Susanoo accused as he pulled out the infamous Tatsuka no Tsurugi, which got a reaction from Seraphol, who stepped in front of the Crimson Lucifer and materialized a magic stick. Ani, please calm down. We have more pressing matter to do. Tsukuyomi tried to be the reasonable one among the five of them. The boy that Inui hired as guard dog seems doing just fine on his own. Get rid of those two is the more pressing matter than obliterated some cannon fodders. Meanwhile with Ichigo, just like what Susanoo said, Ichigo was doing just fine eliminating the invaders with his bare hands, which piqued both Zangetsu's curiosity. Are you sure you don't need your blade for this, Ichigo? Quincy Zangetsu asked from within his inner world. Nay. These clowns are just small fries. I bet they won't appreciate it if I use him to cut them up. Ichigo replied as he dodged a beam that was fired at him before he disintegrated the shooter's soul with a swipe of his left hand, which had been enhanced by blood alchemy. Damn. Ing. Straight. Zangetsu replied at the thought his wielder still has some respect for him, ignoring the fact that the said wielder just called him. Beside, I think this is a great chance for me to hone my skills in both Quincy and Hollow powers. I can't always rely on my Shinigami power all the time. Ichigo continued as he had been chased by a group of devils that looked very livid at him. Quincy Zangetsu let out a small smile at this as he nodded in satisfaction. It's really nice to see that you've grown up, Ichigo. Learning all of your power aside your Shinigami one may help you in your war against Aizen and Yhwach. On your 6. Quincy Zangetsu said, warning him of the incoming enemy from behind. Ichigo felt someone behind him. He didn't even bother to turn around, just applying some of his Ryotsu onto his back region. Twack. The hybrid heard something was snapped into two and looked behind him over his shoulder to see a fodder devil stared at his weapon and him before he freaked out as if he had lost his mind. What are you? Get away from me. He started to rambling while backed away fearfully from the hybrid. The hybrid just blinked in response. He stepped forwards and was about to finish the devil off. Boom! Ichigo was struck by a volley of spells from behind him, creating a decent big explosion, not big enough to do much damage, but still big enough to make a scene. The devil, who was terrified of Ichigo, quickly retreated back to his fellow devils, who looked at him with a rather insolent look. Look who's just pissed his pants off, one of them said, earning a full blown of laughter from his companions, which annoyed the hell out of the devil that had confronted Ichigo. Shut up, no, ask your opinion, he retorted while embarrassed by his earlier action. The guy managed to take out over 100 of my group with only using bare hand. Or, you and your group are just that weak, if you got demolished by only one guy. The devils were laughing, completely obvious of a red Ryotsu gathered up from within the cloud of dust. A medium-sized red ball composed of Ryotsu was shot out from the cloud of dust and moved towards the group of devils at light speed.
Approximately 56 devils were obliterated out of existence when the red ball struck onto them.
When the cloud of dust disappeared, it revealed Ichigo, without any injuries on his body despite after taking a hit with his right fist extended forwards. So that's Bala, huh? Not as destructive as Sero but fast as hell. The hybrid muttered himself as he lowered his fist. He looked down to see the Shinto Trinity were having rather a heated argument with the two Mao. Probably demanded explanation why the conference were attacked by their kinds. Out of curiosity, Ichigo floated down towards the faction leader and landed beside Amaterasu, who has a very furious look on her face. Ichigo just watched the argument from the sideline and somehow found it entertaining. The Shinto threw some accusations towards the devil, who did their best to explain to them that they weren't the one behind the attack. It's like a soap opera to him, only the cast were some powerful supernatural beings. That was when the hybrid noticed something in the air. And he decided to let the leaders know it too. Guys, I think you might want to see this. The leaders of both factions fortunately heard him and looked towards the direction Ichigo was pointing out. A numerous orange magic circle were everywhere in the sky, and more foot soldiers appeared from it. This caused the two Mao gasped in surprise, which didn't go unnoticed by the Shinto Trinity. You recognized that magic circle? Amaterasu asked as she looked at the two devils, who nodded their heads in confirmation. Yes, they were our enemies in the Civil War, the old Mao faction. Serafal, who momentarily forgotten her irritation towards the Shinto, especially the god of sea and storm, answered the goddess of sun. I can't believe it, they still exist after all these time, even after we decimated their numbers drastically. Sirzek murmured to himself while rubbed his chin with his finger.
Suddenly a magic circle that, again, looked really familiar to Serafal and Sirzek because of the crest in the middle of the circle, appeared before all the factions' leader, plus Ichigo. A buxom bespectacled woman with tan skin and long brown hair appeared from the magic circle. She wore an extremely low-cut dress and it had a high slit which exposed a large portion of her S.
Kataria. The current Leviathan gasped out in shock at the sight of her enemy from the Civil War 500 years ago.
Kataria Leviathan, one of 3 leaders of Old Mao faction, a direct descendant of the original Leviathan.
Hello, Serafal. It's been a while, hasn't it? The descendant of Leviathan greeted the current Leviathan in mocked polite manner.
Ichigo stared at the newcomer with suspicious eyes. He was really sure that this woman was a devil, a very powerful one. But the fact he could sense a bit trace of Reiatsu within her demonic power.
Could it be? Him? Ichigo wondered within his mind as he continued to watch the exchange between Kataria and Serafal. It was you who were behind that kidnapping attempt? Sirzek spoke. That was more a statement than a question. That's correct. Kataria revealed, earning a surprised look from everyone. I was the one who ordered the kidnapping attempt on Yhwach. Why would you set me up? What are you aiming for? Seraphal demanded. Rage was clearly visible in her voice and eyes. The descendant of Leviathan spreaded her arms to her sides dramatically like what every cliché villain would do. Isn't it obvious? I want to reclaim what is rightfully mine, the title of Leviathan. We, the original Mao faction, believes that the current Mao are defiling the name of Mao itself. Ichigo raised an eyebrow at this. Original, current, if it's true, then Sirzek and Seraphal were not related to the Lucifer and Leviathan. They were just using their names. It's no wonder that Kataria would rebel. Although Sirzek and Seraphal seems to use the title of Lucifer and Leviathan for good, name is something that should be proud of after all, even among supernatural being. Still doesn't excuse her action towards Yhwach and Kuno. Furthermore, we wished to cause destruction and chaos to the world to rebuild it into a new world under the rule of herself and the other descendants of the original Mao, with the administration meant to create a new world where the system, laws and doctrines suit the ideology of the original Mao faction. Well, it's official. Kataria was the villain in this story, a very cliché one at that. And like many other stories out there, the hero would defeat the cliché villain right here and now. Amaterasu, surprisingly, stepped forward slightly as she addressed the descendant of Leviathan. Her face was so unreadable to any mortal eyes, but everyone present knew that the goddess of sun was utterly pissed. Normally, the Shinto wouldn't involve ourselves into the devil's mess. The goddess of sun spoke while giving Kataria a really fierce glare which made her flinched a little bit, but she hid it well. Although, it's obvious that everyone noticed it. But the fact you tried to kidnap my daughter, and my granddaughter, is enough reason for us to intervene. Also, Susanoo added as he and Tsukuyomi, as well as Sirzek and Seraphal, stepped forwards and faced the descendant of Leviathan. Do you seriously believe that you can take all of us on by yourself? To emphasize his point, the leader of both faction flared their respective powers, which made Kataria was having a troubled look on her face. Ichigo, on other hand, wasn't even affected at all. The descendant of Leviathan barely able to steel herself in front of 5 powerful beings and just laughed lightly. Alone, maybe not. Kataria then raised her right hand to the air and continued. But that's the reason why I'm bringing reinforcement with me. After her declaration, a portal appeared in the air from behind her. Everyone looked up at the portal and widened their eyes when they saw what inside the portal. Foot soldiers. A lot of them. Ichigo widened his eyes a little at the familiar-looking portal before he hid it well. I'm bringing an army that consisted of 100,000 of our kinds. Each of them have the power equivalent to any high-class devil. I'm sure even the 5 of you couldn't handle such overwhelming numbers.
100,000. Impossible, Sirzek stated in pure shock. Even the number of devils that resided in Underworld were barely reached 400,000. How did you recover your number that fast?
We have some interesting business partner, who not only able to increase our army but empowered them up as well. Now Ichigo was certain about the identity of this business partner Kataria talked about. There is no mistake, it's Aizen's doing, Ichigo told both Zangetsu. But I thought he was a loner. He wouldn't, in million times, work for anyone. The dude is too prideful for that, Zangetsu commented. That woman said, business partner, not subordinates. Which means it was just a deal that benefit for both of them. Quincy Zangetsu remarked, which earned a nod of agreement from Ichigo. Still doesn't dismiss the possibility of him having an army of his own, Ichigo added before focused on the current event. Have you contacted the capital for reinforcement? The Shinto god of moon questioned the 2 Tengu guard who were present. We tried Tsukuyomi-sama, but we cannot reach them at all. The guards answered their master, which earned a frustration groan from the other. Which means they have to deal with this mess themselves. It's not like they couldn't do it, it's just that it would be a pain in the ass facing that many army at once.
Guess we have to do it ourselves, Amaterasu murmured as she, and the other leaders including the 2 Mao, prepared themselves for battle.
Kataria Leviathan just laughed smoothly at this. Ufufufufu, let's see how long you would last against such overwhelming number. The descendant motioned her army to attack.
But before even one of them could step out from the Garganta,
Getsuga Tenshou, an unbelievably massive wave of blue Ryotsu washed over the Garganta, and everyone inside of it. Everyone including Kataria herself, could heard the agonizing screams from the foot soldiers before it washed out by the wave of Ryotsu.
In the span of 5 seconds, the interdimensional portal, 100,000 of devil souls were obliterated out of existence by just one attack.
Ichigo rested the large Zangetsu onto his shoulder and wiped some sweats from his forehead. Phew. I had to release one seal for that Getsuga, didn't think it would be that hard controlling the sudden burst of my Ryotsu. He thought as he placed the blade to his back. You gotta be more careful next Ichigo, if you were a second too late back then, your Ryotsu will wipe out all those souls in Kyoto. Quincy Zangetsu advised with a very serious tone, knowing the seriousness of this matter. Noted. Ichigo nodded his head, keep the advice in his mind which wasn't really necessary since Zangetsu was already in there. The hybrid looked down at the descendant of Leviathan who had a really gobsmacked face, which he found quite funny. What is this? T to obliterate T that many high-class devils in O1 go. Kataria stuttered as he stared up at Ichigo with a frightened look on her face. She, of course, noticed his of the boy who were standing beside the faction's leaders, but since she doesn't know who he is, she just assumed that this boy was a mere guard dog and thus chose to ignore him. But to think that this boy was also a threat equal to the faction leader. What kind of monster are you? Ichigo just blinked his eyes as Kataria literally screamed out that question to him. Well, that's the first. He thought to himself before he saw Kataria prepared some spells to attack him. Ichigo just casually stand in the mid-air, preparing to defend himself if necessary. But suddenly, Kataria's entire body, sans her head, were frozen solid in thick layer of ice, dispelling the spell she prepared earlier. The descendant of Leviathan tried to break free the binding but yield zero result, even after she unleashed the full force of her demonic power.
Impossible. I just received massive power up and yet couldn't even break a spell at this level. Kataria screamed in shock as she struggled to break free. Ichigo turned towards the faction leader and saw Seraphol was the one who fired that spell. He then floated down towards them and was greeted by Amaterasu. Good work, Ichigo-kun. We could have handled it, but it's good that you're professional in doing your job. Amaterasu remarked with a smile graced her beautiful face.
Ichigo just stared at her for a moment before he turned around and walked away from the group. Just make sure my payment arrived on time. As soon as he said that, the hybrid vanished in burst of shunpo, leaving the leader's factions dealing with Kataria. Unbeknown to everyone, a certain red-eyed purple-haired woman watched the entire fiasco from distance. A smile graced on her beautiful face. So that's a glimpse of your power, Ichigo-kun. It's so overwhelming than I thought. The woman murmured to herself before he began to vanish in particles of light. I can't wait to meet you face to face. What is the meaning of this? A handsome man with a fit, muscular build demanded as he read the papers in his hand.
The man has long, light hair, curling at its ends into a number of thick, well-defined rings. He also continues to wear a smooth, uniform outfit, including an overcoat closed to the end of his torso, under which he wears frilled garments and a pair of gloves with a net pattern on the upper half. This man was Funny Valentine, the 23rd and the current President of United States of America. He was also the youngest man to ever become the #1 man in America at the age of 35. Currently, he was in the Roosevelt Room, surrounded by his secret services, with each of them was prepared to act, while hosting a bilateral meeting with the Germans delegation, who was none other than the second most powerful person in Germany, General Fate Testarossa. I have no idea what you are talking about, Mr. President. The Supreme General of Nazi Germany spoke with a tone that sounds like a declaration as if she was the most innocent person on the planet. Valentine narrowed his eyes in ire at this. Don't pretend to be an ignorant fool, General. You of all people should realize that there is no way America would comply to your outrageous demands. The President of USA snapped as he slammed the papers on the table. Confused at what he said, Fate just raised an eyebrow at the word Valentine just used. Outrageous. Really? All I asked was just an abandoned field your country possessed in the middle of nowhere. Was that really hard for such big country like America? The blonde general spoke exasperatedly while leaning to her seat. The blonde president stood to his feet and regarded the Nazi general. Not after we found out there are large amount of gold buried underneath the field you desired in Texas. As if we would let Germany to milk out what is rightfully ours. The US president proclaimed with a loud voice. He he he. Ha 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 ha. Unfortunately, the beauty general found that statement funny and doesn't even bother to suppress her laughter, which made the president and his guards felt offended. Gold, is that what you worry about? Then I shall enlighten you, Mr. President. I have no interest in something as insignificant as money in form of shining rocks. Fate stated, felt slightly offended at the accusation she got from the US president.
The US president let out a furious growl as the blonde female general while barely suppressed the urge to shoot the insolent general on the spot.
The nigh omnipotent mortal vessel felt slightly bored with the meeting and decided to get over with the bullshit and straight to business. Besides, it's not like we won't give you something in return. I'm not that foolish to think such wishful thinking. The Nazi general spoke, earning a raised eyebrow from the president. The general stared at Valentine with an unreadable look and asked, "Would you like to hear my offer, Valentine?"
The US president stared at her for a moment, trying to find a hint of trickery behind that question. He sat back to his seat and nodded slightly when he hadn't found any. Yet. Fate leaned forward to the table and lays her elbows onto it. It's no secret that America and Russia are in verge of war due to the Alaska boundary dispute, right? The Nazi general began, earning a frown from the American in the room at the mention of such topic. The Alaska boundary dispute. A territorial dispute between United States and Russia. They fought over the golds, uraniums, and many valuable minerals that were buried underneath the Alaska's soil. The dispute had been going on between the Russian and British empires since 1821, and was inherited by the United States as a consequence of the Alaska Purchase, the acquisition of Alaska from the British Empire on March 30, 1867. And what does that has anything to do with your offer? Valentine inquired suspiciously while preparing for any deceitful trick Fate might gonna use.
Fate let out a cryptic smile at this. Let me share you a little secret my agents acquired when they sneaked in the Kremlin. The blonde general stated, earning a series of rather shocked faces from all the Americans within the room. In 3 months, Russia will launch a full-scale attack on Alaska. And will siege not just Alaska, but the entire North America in less than a week.
3, 2, 1. Bam. What? Fate inwardly laughed at their priceless face. She then let out a feral grin that somehow just added the fitting image of the most feared woman on the planet. It's exactly as I said. 3 months from now, Russia will siege North America in estimate span of 4 days. She repeated in smooth tone, always keep her cool despite she just had uttered such bold claim. Ridiculous. Even a big country like Russia doesn't have the means to occupy 3 countries at once in absurdly short amount of time. The US president replied persistently. Oh, but they do. Fate remarked mysteriously, her red eyes were glinted in anticipation. They really have the means to put you down for good.
The blonde president growled at the taunt but didn't say anything. And what makes you think so, Fate Testarossa? Valentine dared the woman before him.
The Nazi general, who is also the most feared woman in the world, dropped her proper lady persona and showed him her true color. I don't mind to share, but I can't really say the same to you, Secret Service. I'm afraid I must demand them to leave this room. The Supreme General of Nazi Germany stated sternly. Red eyes were piercing into the president's soul, startling Valentine slightly. Absurd. As if we would leave the president alone with you of all people. One of Valentine's secret services interjected as he pulled out a handgun from his suit and took aim to Fate's head. The general, however, didn't seem give a damn about a gun was aimed at her. In fact, she was expecting it. She was planning for this to deliver an insult to the president. And essentially, his country as well.
Fate didn't bat an eye from Valentine despite being threatened by his guard dog. Disappointing. What kind of president would let his men threaten his guest just like that? I wonder what the other country would think of America when they hear about this. Fate spoke with displeased tone as she leaned to her seat. This got a slight reaction from Valentine which made her smile a little. 1 blackmail material is now in her possession. Just as planned. Which would makes this negotiation be much easier just as planned. Which disappointed her a little bit since she was expecting Valentine to put up a much more of a fight. The Supreme General let out a sigh before she addressed the President of US again. But considering I'm in quite a good mood, I'll let this insolence slide for now. Although, I suggest you to find a much more obedient guard dog if you don't want your country to be embarrassed by such insignificant pieces of the game.
Fate finally delivered her jab. She wasn't holding back anything. This got reaction from the secret services in the room, that were about to snarl at the German woman and demanded her to take her words back. But with one quick glare from their president, they backed down, including the one who threatened Fate earlier. Fate was quite pleased at this. Valentine proved himself to be a much level-headed than she expected. Although she could see him frowning for a moment, it's not a small feat to not lash out after being openly insulted in front of his own men, by the delegation from other country. Valentine merely addressed his guards and sounds his order. "Leave us." He announced his order with a tone that said, "Obey or suffer the consequence." Fate let out a small, victorious grin at this. The general knew Valentine couldn't resist to find out what intel she got regarding Russia, despite doesn't have the guarantee whether or not the intel was true of foe. Valentine was willingly to gamble his life for his country.
She could at least respect that level of patriotism.
As the guards leave the room one by one, Valentine turned his attention back to his guest. "Try anything and you will regret it for the rest of your life." Valentine threatened the general as his last guard leave the room. Fate herself doesn't felt threatened at all. She had been threatened by a much more powerful person, and a threat from a mere human wouldn't even bother her at all. Although she wouldn't let Valentine's insolence slide this time.
"If I try something, I would have had you in body bag and hang you on the top of Liberty statue where the world can see your rotten dead corpse displayed during your Independence Day." Fate threatened him back. Her tone was so casual that it doesn't sound like arrogance. Valentine openly gritted his teeth this time while trying to act tough, which was a futile endeavor. Fate could tell that the president felt obviously threatened by her statement, as he knew the general before him could end his life whenever she wants.
"Just start telling me the intel you got and I might considering your demand." The US president spoke between gritted teeth as he gripped the arm of his seat.
The Supreme General of Nazi Germany didn't like the tone Valentine was using, but then she decided she had psyche the poor man enough and get to the business. Fate then proceeded to pick up a cup of tea that Valentine's servant served for her. At least he knows the basic knowledge of hosting guests.
The German general put down the cup back onto the table before she gave Valentine a fierce stare. "Before we can start, Mr. President, I'm gonna ask you this. Do you believe in supernatural?" Tuesday, March 30th, 1997, 11 o'clock a.m., DXD Universe. Earth, Asia, Japan, Tokyo, Tokyo Dome.
Tokyo Dome, also known to the world as the Big Egg. It's a stadium that was located in Bunkyo, Tokyo, Japan. Construction on the stadium began on May 16, 1985, and it opened on March 17, 1988. It was built on the site of the velodrome, adjacent to the predecessor ballpark, Korakuen Stadium. It has a maximum total capacity of 55,000 depending on configuration, with an all-seating configuration of 42,000.
It is the home field of the Yomiuri Giants baseball team, and has also hosted basketball, American football and association football games, as well as puroresu, pro wrestling, matches, mixed martial arts events, kickboxing events, and monster truck races. But right now, the Big Egg was currently being used as the venue of a music concert of an international singer. Still on fire, Tokyo. Standing in the middle of the very extravagant stage, a very beautiful woman screamed over her mic, earning the series' roar of excitement from over 100,000 of people that crowded the stadium.
The woman stood over 6 feet 11 and has an exotic pale skin. Her very elegant purple hair was tied into a ponytail and her pair of soul-piercing red eyes were scanning throughout the entire stadium. The woman dressed in a white sleeveless vest with a plain pink shirt underneath it. She also wore a mini skirt and a pair of white heels and a pair of white fingerless gloves. "Are you ready for the grand finale?" the singer screamed over her mic again, which got another response from the audiences. "I cannot hear you. Are you ready?" "Yeah." The crowds of peoples cheered even louder than before until they become quiet before the music started to play. Song play. "I Burn" by Casey Lee Williams. Over 100,000 peoples roared in anticipation when the guitar intro began to play as they recognized the song. "Come at me, and you'll see, I'm more than meets the eye. You think that, you'll break me, you're gonna find in time. You're standing too close to a flame that's burning. Hotter than the sun in the middle of July. Sending out your army, but you still can't win. Listen up, silly boy, 'cause I'm gonna tell you why. Sing with me everyone. I burn, can't hold me now,
you got nothing that can stop me.
I burn. Swing all you want. Like a fever I will take you down.
At this point, the purple-haired singer removed her white vest, leaving her with only her pink shirt before walked towards the edge of the stage and threw the piece of clothing over the crowd. The crowd, as she anticipated, let out the series of cheers and squeals as they were fighting over the vest like a pack of wolves. Reign supreme? In your dreams, you'll never make me bow. Kick my ass? I'm world class, and Super Saiyan now.
You're starting up a fight that you just can't finish. Watch the little hearts while they scrape you off the floor.
Bringing out your rockets? Well, shoot 'em up, baby. High as you can go, but I'm the one who's gonna soar. The singer went to one of the crowd who happens to be a high school girl. She then held out her microphone to the now excited girl as she squealed when her idol approached her. The fans knew what the singer intention as she began to sing the ref of the song.
I burn. Can't hold me now. You got nothing that can stop me.
I burn. Swing all you want. Like a fever I will take you down. The singer stands back to her feet while she waltzed the stage performance and began to sing the song again. It doesn't have to be this way. Let's kiss and make up, then you'll learn. You can fight your life away. I get what I want, so don't bother and just watch me burn.
It's rap time. Hotter than the sun. Feel my fire. Pyromaniac. My desire. Thought that you could see the truth.
Till I just burned down the booth. Human Torch can't with me.
Johnny Blaze. Suspect B. Strike 'em quick, lightning fast. Melt them bitches down to ash. Gasoline, kerosene, strike the match, ignite the scene.
Shit will never be the same. Feel the fury of my flame. Beg for mercy. It won't help. Embrace the ending you were dealt.
Seems US will never learn. Now sit back and watch me burn. Guitar solo melody. Where are your voices, Tokyo? I want to hear them. As if obeying her command, the crowd cheered when the singer addressed them while doing some few moves. The purple-haired singer walked towards the front stage and sings the last part of the song. I burn. Can't hold me now. You got nothing that can stop me.
I burn. Swing all you want. Like a fever I will take you down.
I burn. Can't hold me now. You got nothing that can stop me.
I burn. Swing all you want. Like a fever I will take you down.
Song stop. I Burn by Casey Lee Williams. Thank you.
The crowd applauded the beautiful singer. Some fans, males and females alike, were shouting her name like some sort of world-class celebrity, which she is. The woman then retreated to the backstage while tossed her microphone towards some crew.
Behind the stage, a beautiful silver-haired woman with a pair of matching eyes was waiting for her in her usual maid uniform. A glass of cold orange juicy sat above the tray she held up with her left hand while a black alligator skin jacket was hanging on her other hand. Otsukara-sama Deizu, Ojo-sama. That was a splendid performance as usual, the maid stated as she handed the singer her drink without being ordered.
Thank you, Graphia. The singer thanked to the maid, Graphia, who merely bent down slightly in respect. What's my next schedule now? The purple-haired woman asked as she drank her cold orange juice from the straw.
Your next schedule would be a press conference with media in 15 minutes. Also, you will have a meet and greet with your fans afterward. Graphia answered as she hugged the tray to her side. The singer openly frowned at this as she stopped drinks her beverage. Tell my manager that I cannot come with him to the press conference and cancel all of my schedules for the rest of the day. The purple-haired woman ordered the maid with the tone that said, "Obey," as she began to walk out the backstage and headed somewhere. Graphia obediently followed the lady until they made it in the stadium's parking area. The place was full of vehicles, makes sense since there are so many people comes to the concert. There are few people in there who had left earlier before the final song had ended. They noticed the maid and the singer. Some of them were taking a photo of them while some were asking for the autograph which the singer had kindly granted. The two finally made it to their destination. There was a black-purple colored Ducati Desmosedici RR parked alongside with the other various bikes. There was also a black stripped purple helmet rested above the fuel tank. If I may ask, Ojo-sama, where do you wish to go now? Graphia asked as she took the now empty glass from her master and gave her the alligator skin jacket. The singer smiled for a second before answered. A certain famous cafe around here, it's time for me to properly introduce myself to Ichigo-kun, and rewarded him for helping us. Make sure to dispose our annoyance after you're done. The purple-haired lady replied as she put on the jacket before hop onto the sport bike. She pulled out the key from her jeans pocket, put it into the keyhole and started on the bike. She shifted the bike to the first gear before speed off the stadium and headed to her destination.
Tuesday, March 30th, 1997, 12:10 p.m., DXD Universe, Earth, Asia, Japan, Tokyo, Bleach Cafe.
Morita-san, another, my melody curry, please. Coming.
Could you help me here, Ichigo-kun? I'm sorry, Fumika-san, but I got my hands full in here.
I knew we should have hired someone before thinking about expanding the cafe. And I blame you for this, dear. Hey, how could I know our cafe would become very popular? You should get the idea the moment Ichigo-kun came to our life.
Yes. Just another busy day in Bleach Cafe. It has been nearly 4 months since Ichigo ended up in this universe and working for the Masakazu as waiter.
The once small rundown cafe wasn't so very small anymore. Due to their meteoric successful, the Masakazu decided to expand the cafe by buying more tables and chairs, added some new menu that will attract more customers, changing the decoration and installed some air conditioners so the customers would feel comfortable, and also built some other facilities like toilets, smoking area, karaoke, parking area and etc.
They, however, made one big miscalculation. Running a newly big cafe, a famous one no less, with only 3 people was a very bad idea. Especially during lunch break like this. 3, Ichigo curry, ready. Morita called out from the kitchen as he put a tray filled with 3 plates of orange-decorated curry, which happened to have the shape of Ichigo's head with a scowl on his face, on the kitchen counter.
Quote. Yes. Ichigo was hesitated for a second before he stopped what he's currently doing, ran off towards the kitchen counter and snatched the tray filled with the order before headed towards the designated table, which happened to be occupied by a group of high school girls that constantly annoyed him on daily basis. Here are your orders, ladies. The orange-haired hybrid in waiter uniform said as nicely as he could. The leader of these girls, whose name Ichigo couldn't remember due how annoyed he was at them, let out a girlish giggle as usual as he put down their orders.
Oh my. Thank you, Ichigo-kun. You're really a gentleman as usual, the girl said as she pulled one of the plates towards her and stared at the Ichigo's head-shaped food. Far more intently for Ichigo's liking. Delicious. I can't wait to eat this tempting food.
Ichigo may a little prude, but he is not dense at the double meaning in her words.
Grumbling a little, Ichigo retreated back to the kitchen while scowling all the while. This caused the girls to let out series of giggles while gossiping about something.
Ah, he's so easy to tease. He grumpily walked towards the cashier where Fumika was standing behind it and sat on a chair that was reserved for him only.
The female Masakazu was about to say something but Ichigo quickly interrupted her. Don't say a word, please. I'm still not sure how I haven't lost it due their constant annoyances. The orange-haired hybrid mumbled loud enough for Fumika to hear.
The female Masakazu could only sigh at this. If not for the circumstances, she would have brought the young man into her embrace and patted his back comfortably. 4 months since Ichigo came to their lives, this young man has become more like a son to her and her husband. A son that they could never had. You see, doctor diagnosed Fumika with infertility. It has been like that for over 30 years since their marriage and it's almost caused her to break down. Hell, she even had attempted in suicide once. The thought of unable to bear a child was too much for Fumika to handle. Luckily though, her husband had stopped her just in time and managed to talk some sense into her. Ever since that day, she had always been prayed to all Shinto gods out there whose existence was still unknown to the female Masakazu. She prayed to be blessed with children. For almost 20 years, she's been prayed and was about to give up. That was when Ichigo came and saved their lives during that faithful day. Perhaps you're more level-headed than you gives yourself credit, Ichigo-kun. Fumika replied in teasing manner, causing Ichigo to snap his head at her immediately while having an annoyed look on his face. Fumika couldn't help but giggle lightly at his face. Are you saying that I have the look of someone who had anger issue? Ichigo inquired as his eye twitched in annoyance. Fumika just give a look before answering. You just proved my point, Ichigo-kun. She replied while maintaining eye contact with him.
Ichigo opened his mouth and was about to say something. Vroom. If not because a very loud sounds coming from motorcycle engine was heard from outside the cafe.
This earned the attention not only from the waiter and the cashier, but for the customers as well. They looked outside to see a rather bulky purple-black colored motorcycle was parked in the parking area. The bike rider turned off the motorcycle, pulled out the key from the keyhole before removed the helmet, revealing a very long beautiful purple hair on a very beautiful woman's head.
The crowd, mainly females, let out a series of cries of surprise when they see who the rider was.
This includes Fumika's herself. Hya, it's her, it's her. Fumika squealed. She probably squealed even louder than any female in the room despite her age. Ichigo could only stare at his boss before she stared at the purple-haired woman who got swarmed by the hordes of fans as soon as she entered the cafe.
Who's she anyway? The orange-haired hybrid asked to no one in particular. But unfortunately, Fumika heard him and could only give him a stares of disbelief. What? You didn't know who she is? Fumika gasped at Ichigo, who just gave her a look that screamed, elaborate, Amira Sanchez. She's world-class multi-talented celebrity. She's actually a Japanese. Her name only comes from her Spanish heritage. Aside of being a singer, she is also a very talented actress, presenter, music composer and also a very amazing chef as well as a food critique.
At the last word, realization was washed over her as she gasped out in panic. Oh my god, does that mean she's here to review our cafe? Fumika blabbered, fixing her clothes before heads off to the newcomer. The celebrity, Amira, noticed Fumika walked towards her and smiled as she politely tell her fans to give her some space. As the crowd went back to their tables, the purple-haired singer then confronted the cafe owner. I believe you're the owner of this cafe, right? It was more to a statement than the actual question.
Why yes. Welcome to Bleach Cafe, Miss Sanchez. Fumika greeted, stuttering as she bowed down slightly at the singer.
The purple-haired lady just smiled smoothly at the female Masakazu. Her nervousness was so obvious. A sign of the fact she knew who she's talking to. I also believe it's not necessary to elaborate the reason I'm visiting this nice cafe. Amira Sanchez stated, emphasized the word nice to see her reaction. As expected, Fumika flinched a little but managed to regain her composure before she gestured her hands to her right. Why yes, please let me show you your table, Miss Sanchez. The cafe owner guided her special customer to the table near the window.
Amira sat on the seat as she received the menu from Fumika. Thank you. And please, call me Amira, she replied before looking through the menu.
While Amira was scanning through the menu, Fumika went to the cashier to get a notebook and a pen. Fumika watched Amira trying to decide which menu she should order. Ichigo watched this from his position and couldn't help but pity his boss. He understands why Fumika was so nervous. Food critiques review was so essential to determine the future of some restaurants or in this case, cafe. They will most likely decide whether or not a restaurant is going to.
Amira finally finished looking through the menu as she put it down onto the table.
That was Fumika's cue. Have you decided what you would order, Miss Amira? Fumika asked as she held up the notebook and the pen. The purple-haired lady just turned toward her and smiled. Surprise me. It was a demand and challenge and Fumika knew it. As you wish. The female Masakazu then quickly speed off towards the kitchen, ignoring Ichigo who's about to say something and disappeared into the kitchen. About 20 minutes later, Fumika came out from the kitchen with a tray on her hands. There were two menus on the tray. Ichigo recognized one of them, the green tea ice cream that impressed even the goddess of sun herself. Ichigo silently commended Fumika's choice of menu. The green tea ice cream wasn't exactly available for customers, but it seems Fumika decided to not take any chances against a food critique. Although, Ichigo don't recognize the other menu that Fumika brought for Amira Sanchez. It was rather a small portion food, possibly made of various kinds of vegetable, but the smell was so damn delicious. This of course, caught many attentions from the other customers. Most of them whispered to each other as they watched the two menus they had never seen before being served for the food critique who was also a very famous celebrity. Some of them were drooling at the sight of such delicious looking menu.
Fumika placed the two menu on Amira's table without saying a word. The multi-talented celebrity stared at the menu, studying them for a little bit, but she more focused at the main dish.
Is this a ratatouille? The purple-haired woman asked, though her question sounds like a statement more than an actual question.
Ichigo couldn't help but gasped in surprise at this. Ratatouille, a French Provençal stewed vegetable dish, originating in Nice, and sometimes referred to as ratatouille niçoise.
The word ratatouille derives from the Occitan ratatola and is related to the French ratouiller and tatouiller, expressive forms of the verb touiller, meaning, to stir up. From the late 18th century, in French, it merely indicated a coarse stew. The modern ratatouille, tomatoes as a foundation for sautéed garlic, onions, zucchini, eggplant, bell peppers, marjoram, fennel and basil, or bay leaf and thyme, or a mix of green herbs like herbes de Provence, does not appear in print until circa 1930.
The orange-haired hybrid looked at his boss with one thought. Since when did she know a thing about French dish?
Yes, I've been practicing the menu for a month and wish to add this to the menu, but I'm still not sure if it's the right decision. Perhaps a review from you would convince me to do it, Fumika explained as she hugged the tray to her chest. Ichigo wasn't sure how to respond about that. It's true that a review from a food critique would be very essential for menu choosing, but that can only be happened if the reviewer gave the positive review. If not, then no one would want to try the menu if it got a bad one. Amira reached for her jacket and pulled out a notebook and a pen before laying them beside the foods. She then took the utensil, was about to begin but paused before she looked at the female Masakazu. Would you mind provide me some spaces? The celebrity asked politely. She wasn't only looking at Fumika, but everyone else in the cafe whose eyes were staring at her for a while.
The other customers quickly minded their own business while the cafe owner gasped in realization as she bowed slightly. Right. Forgive my rudeness, Amira-san. Please enjoy. With that one apology, Fumika retreated from the table and left Amira alone. The orange-haired Shinigami just shook his head at this, although he suddenly frowned when he remembered something. It has been 5 days since the conference between Shinto and Devil. He concluded that unfortunately, Aizen had been here longer than he did and have some business affair with the old Mao faction. That doesn't stop there, there is also a possibility of him having an army on his own.
While that made him on edge all the time, it wasn't the bad news of all. Yhwach, the guy that took on both Ichigo and Aizen at their best. He, after all, was the first one to enter that dimensional rift. And that also means that he has been here even longer than Aizen. It's possible that even right now, Yhwach could execute whatever kind of crazy plans he has in his head.
In other words, Ichigo was literally 100 steps behind his two enemies. Fret not, Ichigo. We are always here by your sides all the time. A response from Quincy Zangetsu and a nod of agreement from Zangetsu eased his mind slightly.
3. My melody curry, ready. He was snapped out from his train of thoughts when Morita called out for him from the kitchen. He sighed to calm his mind down. Work first, thinks about them later. Ichigo walked towards the counter and picked up a tray filled with 3 plates of pink decorated curry. He carefully walked towards the designation table and placed the order for the customers who, much to his relief, were child accompanied with their parents. Ichigo-kun, minds give me a hand here. Fumika voiced called.
Sure. What is it, Fumi? Ichigo turned around and frozen suddenly when he's seeing something off. It was his boss, Masakazu Fumika, she was talking to. A tree. Her face facing over a decorated tree on the cafe, but from the way she talked, she's truly believed that she was talking to him. Not only that, he can also see the group of high school girls that constantly annoyed him, were talking. Flirting. To no one but they were truly believed that they were currently talking to him, even though Ichigo hadn't moved an inch from his place. What's going on here? As soon as Ichigo asked this, an unbearable chilling sensation ran through his spine. He widened his eyes as he frantically looked around the cafe to find the source of this anomaly. Guys? Ichigo asked panically, the 2 manifestations of his powers. I tried King, but I still can't find the source. Zangetsu spoke in equally panic, something that doesn't happen often. Ichigo then paced around the cafe, carefully not to touch any of the people around here while looking right, left, back, front for the source. He suddenly stopped and decided to try something. Hey Fumika-san. Can you hear me? He yelled at his boss, who tried to push a huge cabinet on her own.
Come on, Ichigo-kun. Push. Fumika grunted as she futilely pushed the huge cabinet alone, although she's believed that Ichigo was helping her. Just what the hell is going on? Ichigo asked to no one in particular. Although, he wasn't expecting someone answered him.
It's Kyoka Suigetsu's ability. A smooth voice answered, causing the orange-haired hybrid widen his eyes in pure shock. Ichigo turned towards the source, which happened to be the table behind him, and looked at who sat on the said table. Long beautiful purple hair, exotic pale skins, soul-piercing red eyes, clad in black jacket with pink shirt underneath and jeans. Amira Sanchez, the multi-talented celebrity Fumika keep praised about, was the source of this anomaly. And she mentioned Kyoka Suigetsu earlier. If she knows Kyoka Suigetsu, then she must be with him. Which automatically make her his enemy. Who are you? Ichigo regained his cool as he asked. No, demanded the purple-haired beauty with the tone that said, obey or die horribly. But the woman doesn't feel threatened at all as she continued tasting the food the cafe owner served for her. Really, Ichigo-kun? Is that the best you can do? Why does everyone always say that cliché line like every time enemy appeared? The mysterious Amira Sanchez replied without even looking at Ichigo as she put a piece of ratatouille on her mouth, chewed it for a little bit before she seemingly nodded in approval. Ichigo's clothes suddenly disappeared and been replaced by his Shinigami uniform before pulled out the large Zangetsu and leveled it to her neck. I'm asking you one more time, who the hell are you? Ichigo demanded with cold tone while pressing the blade to her neck to emphasize his point. The purple-haired woman, however, gave no reaction and continued to mind her own business without give a damn with the fact a very dangerous blade threatened to behead her. You better put that thing away before you hurt yourself with it. Amira Sanchez calmly replied while she wrote her review on the notebook, still without making an eye contact with Ichigo. Ichigo's eyes flashed for a moment, and within the span of a nanosecond, he was able to restrain the urge to chop this woman's head off just to shut her up. But considering they were in the middle of public place, Ichigo pulled the large blade from her neck before secured it on his back.
The woman finally paid attention to him as she looked up and gave him a small smile. I was expecting you to snap out and try to chop my head off. It looks like you're more level-headed than I give you credit. Amira spoke in rather pleased manner as she reached for the green tea ice cream and scooped some of them with a spoon. Very well, I will humor your question. Though not directly. The moment the purple-haired woman put the ice cream into her mouth, she widened her eyes for a moment before hummed pleasantly. She put the fork down and wrote her review again on the notebook before took a spoon of the ice cream again. You actually have met with my kinds few days ago. I'm sure you can tell which one. She put another ice cream into her mouth and beamed again. Ichigo was openly frowning at this as the gears of his brain began to work overtime. Few days ago? The last time I'm dealing with supernatural affair was during the conference. Does she really referring to that? Ichigo thought as his eyes never leave the mysterious woman before him who merely helped herself with the delicious dessert. I don't know, King. I mean, you've met with so many species back then, though you could narrowed it down into 3 categories. Zangetsu spoke out of blue. 3. Ichigo blinked in confusion at that. The Yukai, the devil and the deity. Quincy Zangetsu joined in the inner conversation. This lady is obviously not a Yukai due her lack of animal characteristic. I don't think she's a devil either, King. Zangetsu continued from within Ichigo's inner world. Her presence alone screams all but lethal to devils. And what makes you say that? Ichigo raised an eyebrow at this. It's probably due the similar characteristic between devil and hollow. Both of them carried on dark presences around them. Quincy Zangetsu explained and paused for a moment before continued. Although I can easily feel the dark aura this woman gave off that dwarf even those super devils. So that's leaves with the final category. Ichigo rubbed his finger on his chin before ended the inner conversation and turned his attention back to this woman who called herself Amira Sanchez. You're a goddess. A Shinto goddess precisely. Ichigo answered without a hint of doubt, which gains the attention front the purple-haired woman before him. The woman who called herself Amira Sanchez let out a small smile at the young man. Ding, ding, ding. 100 for you, Ichigo-kun. And I must commend you for correctly guessed which mythology I came from.
The newly revealed Shinto goddess responded in cheery manner before she finished up the green tea ice cream from Fumika.
She put down the spoon before rested her hand on the table and looked up at Ichigo. Now, all you have to do is to guess which goddess I am in Shinto mythology. The purple-haired beauty spoke and waiting for his answer. Ichigo racked his brain again. There were many Shinto goddesses, only few of them were really famous. Though he could roll out Amaterasu out of this, he had met with the goddess of sun in person, or rather in her mortal vessel. Although every time this woman was looking at him with her rather soulless red eyes, Ichigo felt as if he's staring at his own death. Wait, death. Ichigo's brain had stopped working for a moment when a sudden realization dawned over him.
There is only one Shinto goddess who related to death, as far as he knows. And Ichigo widened his eyes and paled a little when he figured out the identity of this woman. The purple-haired lady grinned at his reaction and decided to confirm his theory. That's right, Ichigo-kun. My name is Izanami no Makoto. A pleasure meeting you, Kurosaki Ichigo.
Izanami no Makoto, the infamous primordial goddess of creation and death, as well as the former wife of the god Izanagi no Makoto.
The myth said she died after giving birth to the child Kagusuchi, incarnation of fire, or Homusubi, causer of fire. She was then buried on Mount Hiba, at the border of the old provinces of Izumo and Hoki, near modern-day Yasugi of Shimane Prefecture. Izanagi was so angry at the death of his wife that he killed the newborn child, thereby creating dozens of deities. To say Ichigo was surprised would be a very big understatement. He was rocked to his core. The Japanese representation of death was just few inches away from him, dressed in rather modern clothes, disguising as a multi-talented celebrity. And she was riding a Ing Ducati to get here. But more importantly, the goddess knows of Aizen and was able to use his Zanpakuto's ability. Which is an impossibility on itself. How did you meet him? And more importantly, how did you use his Zanpakuto's ability? Ichigo questioned the Shinto goddess. Izanami giggled smoothly at that. Ufufu, asking such personal question. It's second close to a date, Ichigo-kun. Izanami replied while covering her mouth with her hand dramatically.
Ichigo gritted his teeth for a moment before he sighed. What is your business with me? Ichigo regained his composure as he changed back into his waiter uniform and sat in front of Izanami.
Ichigo realized that it would be wise to play at her game from now, but he keeps his guards up all the time just to be sure.
Straight to the point, I see, I like that. Izanami spoke that statement which irked Ichigo to no end. Could really blame him. The one who bullshitting around was her after all. Just want to properly introduce myself to you, and also reward you for your service. Izanami spoke cryptically as she ate the remains of the ratatouille. Ichigo narrowed his eyes at the last part of the statement. Reward me, for what? Ichigo inquired carefully while trying to detect any trick in her voice.
Izanami reached into her jacket and pulled out a blue-covered book and placed it on the table. For disposed some of our minor annoyances for us. I'm confident this will help you with your Ryotsu issue. She then handed the book to the young man who read the cover and couldn't help but twitched his eyebrow in annoyance. How to Control Your Ryotsu for Dummy, that is Kurosaki Ichigo, written by Izanami.
Ichigo looked at the book for a moment before turned his attention back to the purple-haired goddess who kept looking at his with those creepy red eyes of hers.
The book title aside, why are you doing this? Ichigo asked the Shinto goddess of creation and death again. Izanami sighed with a hint of annoyance. I don't like repeating myself, Ichigo-kun, so I see no point answering that. Izanami replied as she took her notebook and pen before stuffed them inside her jacket. Do you realize that you're basically helping your enemy? I don't think Aizen would be pleased with this. Ichigo commented while leaning to his seat. King, the hell are you saying? If they are really full of themselves to think that they can easily best you while handicapping themselves, then let them so you can beat their ego to smithereens. Zangetsu yelled from within Ichigo's inner world, causing the young man to cringe at the loud voice inside his head. I'm afraid it's not that simple. Quincy Zangetsu butted in while defending Ichigo's action. Ichigo just concerned that there are some ulterior motive behind her action. Like there is something she wanted to see, or test. And knowing Aizen, he's probably the one behind this. And probably was already expecting which answer I'm gonna take. Ichigo added as he ended the inner conversation.
Talked with both Zangetsu, I see. Izanami commented. which got a hostile reaction from Ichigo. But she didn't even flinch a little bit.
How do I know that this book would help me with my problem? Ichigo inquired again. You don't. You just have to take my word for it. Izanami answered before snapped her finger, dispelling the illusion effect. They both saw Fumika walk towards them. Ichigo quickly stuffed the book within his waiter uniform and stood up, followed by Izanami. Ah. Miss Amira. How was the food? The female Masakazu asked nervously to the goddess in disguise. The primordial goddess slipped into her celebrity persona and smiled politely at the mortal before her. I'm afraid I cannot answer that. You have to wait until I publish my review to media. I advises you to pay attention to television and newspaper from now on. The purple-haired woman answered before she reached for her wallet in her jeans, pulled out some money from the wallet and handed them to cafe owner. Please, keep the charge, Izanami said before she headed towards the door. Fumika bowed her head while thanking her for coming to her cafe. Ichigo, however, watched every one of her movement to make sure that Izanami wouldn't try to do something funny. When Izanami jumped onto her sport bike, she gave Ichigo one last knowing smile before put the helmet on and started on the engine before speed off from the cafe. Ichigo finally let out the breath she unconsciously been holding and rubbed his head dizzily from his newly headache. What have I gotten myself into this time? It seems troubles will always find me wherever I go. He mumbled to himself before go back to his work. Nokia's ringtones, or was his original plan if not because his cell phone's going off. He reached to his suit's pocket and pulled out his cell phone and flipped it open. The orange-haired hybrid raised an eyebrow when he saw the screen. Unknown number? This better not be one of those annoying girls. Ichigo looked at the table where the group of girls that constantly annoyed him sat on. To his surprise and relief, they were focused on their lunch and none of them were holding a cell phone. Good, it means less annoyance for me. With that, Ichigo pressed the green button, stopped the phone from ringing and put the device over his right ear. Yes. Ichigo answered the call, which soon made him wanted to retract his earlier statement. My son. A very familiar voice replied from the other line. Ichigo widened his eyes in shock before it turned into ones that of anger as he gripped his phone tightly that it might break if it puts under more pressure. Suddenly, the orange-haired hybrid realized that his annoyance has been doubled. Yhwach. The end. Now we will see you in the next video.